on the Weather Channel. Real people, real weather.
Like any true sports fans, Mike and Ben have Ultimate TV from Microsoft, so they don't miss any of Sunday's non-stop action.
That's a good reel there. It's a good steady reel he's got.
They can watch and record 2 channels at once.
Hit pause. Go to the other one.
So they catch all the heart-pounding thrills.
He's scaring the fish.
They can even replay the big moments in slow-mo. The DirecTV receiver with Ultimate TV. It also works with football.
We are listening right now live to the ABC affiliate feed. We're going to let you listen in. We are hearing reports right now and pictures. It is tough to see through the smoke. Reportedly, the top half of one of the buildings has collapsed. Let's listen now to this.
That is extraordinary.
People screaming and running from the site. The gigantic plume of smoke has reached me, and I'm probably a quarter of a...
As we know, communications very difficult at this hour out of New York City. We know that several satellite and television transmissions are located on the top of the World Trade Center buildings. That, of course, making it very difficult to get those communications out. We will be bringing you updates as we have them. It sounds like we may have that information back. Let's try to take a listen in again. This coming from ABC.
The southern tower. 10 o'clock Eastern Time this morning, just collapsing on itself. This is a...
You can see the pictures are fairly graphic. We've just received a report, we were listening to our ABC feed, that the southern tower, which was the second tower to be hit, about 18 minutes after the first plane entered the World Trade building, the second tower has just collapsed. It appears that the top half of it is very difficult to tell. As you can tell, there's a lot of smoke and fire billowing out of the area. We're trying to get information from New York as we can and bring it to you. We're also trying to connect with our Washington bureau to find out of other reports of the Pentagon and the White House being evacuated. At this point, we know that 6 people have been confirmed dead. Thousands of people, as you can imagine, have been injured. Wall Street is chaotic at this hour. People are running for their lives, running out of the way of debris that is falling. Obviously, just moments ago, even more debris falling down in the area. We know that Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter, we know Solomon Smith Barney are located in the building. Merrill Lynch is across from the World Trade Center. Cantor Fitzgerald as well. Sheer chaos, and of course our hearts go out to the families who have loved ones in the area. Peter Barnes in our Washington bureau stands by now. Peter, a disastrous day. We know you have much experience in this. Give us some of your thoughts at this moment.
Well, we wanted to let you know, first of all, that President Bush is on his way back from Sarasota, Florida for a National Security Council meeting. This morning in Florida, he called this an apparent terrorist attack on our country and said that terror against our nation will not stand. At this hour, we have reports all around Washington as well of various fires and evacuations of most of the major public buildings. The White House complex, the Treasury, the old Executive Office building. There's a report of a fire at the State Department. That's being evacuated. Also, a number of commercial buildings and hotels in the area around government buildings, including the Mayflower Hotel and office buildings in the White House area are also being evacuated. We also understand the Capitol is being evacuated, and I could tell you that as I was coming from, I was on Capitol Hill this morning when all of this started to break, and I could tell you that the streets were full of fire trucks and sirens racing around the city to try and take care of this emerging apparent coordinated terrorist attack of some kind. Now, obviously, one of the issues here for government policymakers is the vulnerability of government buildings. As you recall, about 3 or 4 years ago, a single-engine airplane almost flew into the White House, crashed into the White House, and after that, there was a concerted effort on the part of security officials here, Secret Service, FBI, and others, to try to beef up the security of government buildings in light of that around the White House and specifically, and also in the wake of the World Trade Center bombing and how eerie all of this sounds. As we recall that bombing incident many years back, but after the World Trade Center bombing and other and this flight into the White House, security around government buildings was beefed up sharply. For example, on Capitol Hill and at the White House, there are now major barriers. You know, they closed off Pennsylvania Avenue at the White House, put up erected barriers there to increase security, to make it very difficult for any kind of bomber to be able to drive up in a van, as happened with at the World Trade Center bombing, and as you know, also Oklahoma City, obviously on the minds of securities experts here. So far, we don't have any reports of any serious damage, just a lot of evacuations and fires.
Peter,
Yes.
we need to add, we've just been given reports now that Sears Tower in Chicago has also been evacuated. We're receiving reports that in Chicago, the Sears Tower, many people are familiar with that landmark, has been evacuated at this hour. Peter?
Yeah, this is, the reality is a lot of these buildings are vulnerable to these kinds of attacks. And
Absolutely.
as we know, the report attacks from the air, attacks from airplanes, and as you know, the speculation is now, and I haven't heard any confirmation of this, that this American Airlines plane, the first one to crash into the North Tower of the World Trade Center, was a plane that may have been hijacked and coming out of Boston, according to my colleague Gary Nuremberg. And this has been always a major safety issue and a big question for government security experts on how to prevent these kinds of landmark buildings to come under this kind of attack.
But what about, Peter, what about the plane? There was a report that there was a plane that crashed near the Pentagon. Are you hearing any further reports on that?
Right, yeah, yes, and the Pentagon is on fire. I'm sorry I left that off the list, but the Pentagon is on fire. There, we can see from our camera locations around the city, we have access to what is called the pool feed here with all the network cameras on various buildings around town. And the other shot that you're not seeing right now is billows of smoke coming out of the Pentagon. And there's also, we know that there's a fire there, obviously. It's unclear at this time what the cause is, whether there was some speculation or that it also might have been an airplane that flew into the Pentagon. There was also a report of a fire on the National Mall of some kind. Again, speculation. I haven't gotten confirmation on that it was also an airplane or something might have crashed on the National Mall.
Now, Peter, you mentioned that there is concern about other federal buildings in the nation. Is there any, have you heard anything about other buildings being evacuated around the nation? We've heard that Sears Tower in Chicago has been evacuated, but any other landmarks, government official buildings in the other states?
Well, in Washington, obviously, almost all the government buildings are being evacuated, but I've got to believe, and I've been standing here watching, as you have, this unfolding story of the building collapse in New York. But I've got to believe that now federal officials are evacuating all the major government buildings around the country. We'll try and get some more on that in a moment.
Peter, I'm sorry to interrupt you. This is Erica. We're just going to interrupt you. We do have another piece of news, some very sobering news for the folks at home. Now, we are receiving word that the second building, the North Tower of the World Trade Center, has also collapsed. We'll be bringing you more information on that, of course, as we have it. Just a few moments ago, we heard word of the first one collapsing. We're going to go straight to Stacey Tisdale now. She is live in our New York bureau. Stacey, what are you hearing? Hi, Stacey.
Erica, I'm looking at pictures right now. I do see one of the towers still standing. It looks like the Northern Tower. I'm looking at a live shot right now of the World Trade Center. It looks like the Northern Tower is still standing. As you mentioned, the Southern Tower did indeed collapse. I have a lot of stuff to update you guys on. First of all, let's talk about some of the developments that are happening around the world. As Michaela mentioned, in Chicago, the Sears Tower has been evacuated. The Los Angeles Police Department is on tactical alert. In Boston, the Hancock Tower has indeed been evacuated. Just to give you a picture of what's happening on Wall Street, take a look. You have the Southern Tower of the World Trade Center has collapsed. The Northern Tower looks like it's still standing. Could collapse at any moment. We were just looking at a live shot. There was a lot of smoke on the ground. Apparently, there has been some type of an explosion in another part of the financial district in New York. And a lot of other businesses and buildings are being evacuated. As you can imagine, this is causing mass chaos, and I am very, very sorry to report that there are reports people are jumping out of the World Trade Center. The FBI has confirmed that 5 people have jumped out already, so it is mass chaos down there. Let me update you on what's happening in the financial world. In response to this move, as soon as this came out, we had a big sell-off in global markets. I know we have some Canadian viewers out there. The Toronto Exchange plummeted 135 points. In Germany, the DAX fell 9%. In Paris, the CAC fell 5%. In London, the FTSE fell 3.3%. All of these markets, and I have to confirm Toronto, were higher, including our own markets, before this crash occurred. The U.S. markets trading has been suspended indefinitely at the New York Stock Exchange, obviously for safety causes of the New York Stock Exchange. That building evacuated in a very chaotic Wall Street area. NASDAQ has suspended trading indefinitely. We're not sure when the activities are going to resume. Interestingly, electronic trading networks like Instanet, like Island, are open, and their trading is taking place on electronic trading networks. You can bet this is something that is going to be explored closely, because a lot of these networks became popular in the bull market when we were having a lot of investors day trading, doing their own trading, and there was a big question of their viability, their necessity, especially as we saw people struggle more and more with the market. Unfortunately, they had to be put to a test like this, but these electronic trade networks are indeed trading, and they're keeping financial activity going. One other thing I want to point out too with market activity, in times of stress, and apparently we're under probably maybe one of the most stressful times for the United States in history, people tend to move money, people around the world tend to move money into investments that are called safe havens. Now, typically, the safe haven investment for investors around the world are U.S. Treasury securities, because we are viewed as the most safe and stable government and economy. Money is not going in there. Money is going into gold. Investors around the world are putting their money in gold, which is viewed as a safe haven standard. Years ago, with not much activity, but the gold prices over the past few minutes have soared $6.30 as investors seek safety and shelter in that commodity.
Yep.
But as far as stock trading goes, trading is halted except on those electronic trade networks.
Stacey, we actually have just received some news. Reuters is reporting that a New York television station, we've been telling folks that one of the planes was a possibly hijacked airplane. Apparently both of these airplanes, this New York television station was reporting that 2 airplanes flying from Boston were hijacked and were believed to be the planes that crashed today into the World Trade Center. The airplanes were believed to be hijacked at Boston's Logan International Airport. One of them was we've just received word that one of them was of United Airlines fleet and the other was from American Airlines fleet. So that is the latest word that we've been receiving. As you know, we've just heard from President Bush. He is calling this an apparent terrorist attack on the U.S., the White House, the Treasury. There's fire at the State Department. Hotels, offices around the White House have been evacuated at this hour. And we know that halting has been, for the most part, just been halted on all of the exchanges, not only the Pacific Exchange here on the west, but the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, the NASDAQ has delayed their opening, and the New York Stock Exchange is evacuated at this point. I believe we're going to take
if I could jump in here now, I just wanted to let you know that bond trading has been halted. That's for the U.S. Treasury market to close. That's generally, as I was just speaking about, where people go to safety. They can't go there right now. Bond trading has been closed at the here in the United States. And I'm just getting some more headlines in my ear as we're speaking. Sources are telling us that the second plane left from Newark. We'll confirm that. And the Chicago Board of Options, I'm just hearing, has suspended trading for the day. Just bear with me as I'm trying to decipher all these latest headlines that we're getting. But the U.S. Treasury market is closed to investors around the world, and that the largest market in the world is where they seek shelter. And as I mentioned earlier, they seem to be turning their investments to gold. But apparently one of the biggest concerns in Washington and of the financial community right now is what is going to happen to U.S. insurance companies, U.S. insurance policies. A lot of these companies have huge corporate bond networks, and that is something that we can't fathom right now, but that's something that is creeping into the mind of investors around the world. So we're going to watch for any developments or word on that as we get them. Back over to you, Michaela.
All right, Stacey Tisdale will be bringing us the latest from New York. At this point, though, I believe we're going to go to Washington.
Peter Barnes is standing by, our Washington Bureau Chief. Peter, you are in Washington. I know you told us the Treasury is being evacuated. You told us that earlier. Also, we're just receiving word from Stacey in New York. The U.S. Treasury markets have officially halted trading for the day. What else can you tell us what's happening in Washington at this hour?
There are 2 thoughts here. One, number one, this is the nightmare scenario for government policy and security makers. There have been hearing after hearing after hearing on Capitol Hill, exercises at the Pentagon, what to do in the event of this kind of attack. And of course, there have been many, many reports from government agencies and security experts saying that the United States, despite all of the effort that it has made in the last few years since the Oklahoma City bombing, since the World Trade Center bombing, and other incidents to try to beef up security around national buildings and major metropolitan areas, that the United States was still very vulnerable to potential terrorist attack. And obviously, we suspect that that is what's happening here with the reports we're getting from around the country. And number two, the irony of this, and this is something we need to check on. Just this week in Washington, there was a convention on cyber terrorism and information warfare. One story here that we haven't explored yet is whether or not we've seen any attack on American infrastructure operations. We'll try to pursue that story here for you in Washington. But that was where a lot of policymakers felt that the next front in global terrorism would be in cyberspace. And there's been an enormous amount of money. Yeah.
Speaking of cyberspace, it doesn't mean anything that there may be an attack in cyberspace. I definitely do not want to fuel a fire there. However, we should note that I imagine this news is, of course, driving everybody online to get information if they are not close to a radio or a television. Us here in the San Francisco Bureau, we've had a really tough time getting onto a lot of different news sites. It's been nearly impossible.
We should mention, too, Peter, that we know that the FAA has grounded all airplanes at this hour, but they will reroute and land the planes that are currently in the air, getting them to their closest destination as possible. So if you're expecting people, viewers out there, you have friends that are or family that are making travel arrangements, stay on standby, because at this point the FAA has grounded all airplanes. We're going to go back to Stacey Tisdale. Peter Barnes, we're going to ask you to... Oh, you have one more point, Peter?
One more thought, though. I will say that the efforts that have been put in place clearly with government barricades around key buildings, heightened security, probably here in Washington at least, prevented this disaster, this attack from being worse than it might have been. What we did not see, because Pennsylvania Avenue is closed in front of the White House, no one in a Ryder truck full of dynamite drove up in front of the White House this morning. The attacks have been in the periphery of the area, probably in part to, so we could chalk that up to at least some success probably in
Who said the Capitol thing, Jessica?
All right, Stacey.
All right, go ahead, Stacey.
We're going to throw to Stacey. Stacey, what do you have at this moment?
Hey guys, I'm sorry we're getting this to you in such a chaotic manner. It's just a chaotic situation. The latest report that I've heard, and Peter, if you can still hear me, check this, please, is that a plane has crashed into Capitol Hill. We're hearing that on CNN, that has just happened. And one of the reasons that we're hearing that we saw that tower collapse like that here in New York at the World Trade Center is that the second plane to hit the tower was booby-trapped with a bomb. So we saw the initial impact, but when we saw the collapse, that could have been cause for that. I want to update you guys on what's happening with all of the global trading activity. The New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ have suspended trading now. Both exchanges are saying that they will not open until at least 11:30 Eastern time. That would be in about an hour and 15 minutes from now. But just from a proximity standpoint, the New York Stock Exchange is very close to the World Trade Center, so that whole area is being evacuated. We're hearing reports that there's also explosions going on within the entire financial district. If we have any pictures of the Wall Street area, you see, I believe, it's hard for me to even make out what the pictures are. It's just a mass of smoke, whereas the flames and smoke were isolated to the World Trade Center. But now that whole area that encompasses Wall Street, that encompasses banks, that encompasses financial institutions, just is ablaze. We're hearing it is mass chaos. There are people jumping out of buildings. There are people running through the streets. So that area is basically in a war zone right now, it feels like. A lot of banks and financial institutions, again, in that area shut down. New York Stock Exchange saying that they're going to stop trading at least until 11:30, but that since that building has been evacuated, it's unlikely, it feels unlikely to me that they would be able to start right now. Now you're getting some pictures and images of the streets of New York. Look how afraid those people are, and it just brings me back to when I was in that building the last time when a bomb went off there a few years ago, and there wasn't nearly the structural damage, there wasn't nearly the explosion, there wasn't nearly the general damage, so I can only imagine what's happening down there. You're looking at a part of the financial district right now. I'm trying to watch with you so I can show you the general area. You're still not quite down and over into the Broadway area, in the Wall Street area where the New York Stock Exchange is. You're heading down towards the World Trade Center. In the and you see, so you can see that picture. There's not much smoke around. It seems like at the World Trade Center, over towards the New York Stock Exchange, which would be, as you're looking at the screen to your left, is where it seems that most of the smoke is isolated, and there are suspicions, in fact, that another bomb went off in that area. So a very chaotic picture down at Wall Street.
Stacey, at this point, we want to ask both you and Peter. At this point, our viewers are probably wondering what kind of maneuvers has the President put in the military into? Is the Army on standby at this point? Are the National Guard being called in?
It's pandemonium here, I can tell you that. It's pandemonium. That we have not heard anything about any troops being mobilized, but I can tell you that there's a report now of an eyewitness telling one other local news organization here that she saw an airplane fly into the Pentagon. That's, of course, not confirmed, but that's according to an eyewitness. And we know that the Pentagon is on fire. Of course, there is also a fire in the vicinity of the Capitol. Again, there's a report that a plane might have crashed on the National Mall, but not into the Capitol itself. However, all of the Capitol, the entire Capitol complex has been evacuated, including all of the office buildings that members of Congress work in. Now, as you also may know, there are safe areas around the Capitol, around Washington, secure areas for top government officials to go to. I can only speculate at this point that some folks, top government folks, are heading to those areas to try and get something going here, try and coordinate something, some kind of response.
We are hearing, in terms of responses, Peter, I was just handed some information. Reuters reporting now one of the planes that did crash into the World Trade Center. As we know, one of those was confirmed to be a Boston to Los Angeles American Airlines flight. A spokesperson now for the Americans Flight Attendants Union is giving some numbers. She says that there is no word yet on whether or not the flight was full.
As you can see on your screen, the FBI is obviously present in New York at this point. They're investigating. Yep. President Bush has called on all federal resources to be on full alert to fully investigate what's going on. We've just lost some of our feed. You'll have to excuse, as we mentioned, Stacey Tisdale mentioned that there is spotty interference with both network communication. Cell phones aren't working at this time, so there may be some technological glitches that you'll have to just bear with us on over the next little while as we bring you this live report.
You can just see this shock on those folks' faces.
Absolutely.
Yep. Stacey, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, you got Michaela put a very interesting question to Peter about what is happening in terms of the FBI being administered and as far as the National Guard being administered. The unfortunate situation here in New York is that firefighters have been unable to or are having a difficult time getting to the fire at the World Trade Center because of so much chaos in the area. So a lot of the rescue and emergency teams that have been deployed are not able to get to the area. And I want you all to understand, as big and broad and vast as New York is, that downtown financial district where the World Trade Center is, where the stock exchange is probably one of the most concentrated areas in Manhattan, consequently in the country, as far as work, as far as density of people. So imagine that area in hysteria and in such a chaotic environment, and you can understand why firefighters are having a difficult time even getting to the problem.
Stacey, you ran through the list, of course, of the exchanges that had halted trading or were closed at this hour, but you did mention that the ECNs, the electronic trading networks, were open. We are just receiving reports from Reuters. Apparently, a dealer at Instinet in London has said the electronic trading system was closed after a series of explosions on what they are calling America's top landmark buildings. This, of course, as you mentioned, sending European markets into a nosedive. Wall Street, as we know, suspended. But again, the reports we're just receiving from Reuters, a dealer at Instinet in London saying the electronic trading system has been closed as a result of what is happening around the United States.
Stacey, for the benefit of our viewers that are just tuning in now, give us an idea. Again, you've been telling us all morning, but for folks that are just tuning in, give us an idea of some of the investment firms that are based out of the World Trade Center. Stacey, are you able to hear us?
Yeah, I'm just getting some headlines. And Erica, I'm hearing the same reports you heard about the Instinet being closed. Michaela, I'm going to ask you to repeat your question in just a moment. But I do want to tell all of our viewers that the NASDAQ is being evacuated. Our own reporter on the site, Jean Lee, is going to try to make her way back to the New York Bureau. But you're talking about trying to do that in an era. The subways are shut down. Cars and buses aren't running. So the NASDAQ closing is very interesting because the NASDAQ had said, and the New York Stock Exchange had said that they were going to try to resume trading at 11, and I can imagine the country's on its most heightened security alert, but now we're starting to see that spread over to other buildings. I'm sure the NASDAQ, because of government reasons, was told to evacuate. Michaela was mentioning some other buildings around the country as well, but we were going to try to get you some reports from there. That has been closed, and our reporter is back on the scene. I'm being told that we have some news out of Washington, so now we're going to go back to our D.C. Bureau Chief, Peter Barnes. Peter?
Hi, Stacey. Yes, I do want to let you know that some of the wire services are reporting that the Secret Service and other law enforcement officials did receive a warning earlier today that the White House might be under attack or might be vulnerable to some kind of attack today. I want to throw that into the mix. The other thing I do want to talk about for a moment is I actually worked down there at the World Trade Center complex back in the 1980s at the World Financial Center complex, and I can tell you just from personal experience down there, as Stacey was saying, this is a very concentrated area for an enormous number of people work in many buildings down in the World Financial Center complex. As you know, in the 1980s, an entire whole new set of buildings that you can't even really see from this shot of the World Trade Center, about half as tall or a third as tall, house companies like Merrill Lynch, Dow Jones, some other major financial firms and other major companies are headquartered in that area, and those buildings are just full of workers. And you've got to believe that that area right now is pandemonium.
Absolutely.
There's also in Battery Park area, right there off to just a little further south of the World Trade Center, is a large apartment and condominium complex. Thousands and thousands of people living in that area. And with the collapse of the South Tower, I speculate here that some of the collateral damage and debris probably hit these other buildings, and obviously there could be many people injured here, many people dead.
Peter, we just received word that we've been giving people updates on what the FAA has done. The FAA has grounded all planes, diverting planes that are currently in the air to locations to land as soon as possible. We've been just given word that all international inbound flights are being rerouted, being directed to land in Canada. We're going to try and get you more details on that at this point, obviously trying to make sure security is at a tight 100% accuracy at all airports around the nation. All right, we're going to take a quick break. Obviously, there's been a lot of developments in these last few minutes. Please stay with us. Tech Live will be bringing you live coverage of this catastrophic day in New York and around the nation. Stay tuned.
If you're concerned about hair loss, call Hair Club now and get this booklet or CD-ROM free. It's packed with the latest information on hair loss breakthroughs from around the world, including hair cloning and genetic therapy. It's loaded with the latest updates on all the proven hair loss options available today, including approved drugs, shampoos, and Hair Club's new procedures. So call 1-800-HAIR-CLUB now to get more information. Hair Club, over 25 years of hair loss experience available at your fingertips.
I get enough excuses from my students. I don't need any for my headache medicine. So, the minute I feel a headache coming on, I take Excedrin. It has the same stuff in it as Tylenol, plus aspirin and an enhancing ingredient. Excedrin just works better than Tylenol. Without any excuses.
Excedrin, the headache medicine.
Medicare medication coverage. Asthma, chronic bronchitis, COPD, emphysema. Are you living with one of these conditions that requires respiratory medications? Are you having difficulty using your inhalers? Do you use Preventil or Albuterol, Atrovent, Combivent? Did you know that if you qualify, Medicare can cover breathing medications in liquid form? Call Med4Home to discuss Medicare requirements.
Call now, 1-800-335-6716.
All right, let's recap what you're seeing in front of you. We have live pictures from New York for those of you just tuning in. And to recap what we've been covering today, just before 9 a.m. Eastern Time today in New York City, the World Trade Center was hit by what appears to be a hijacked plane. Approximately 18 minutes later, a second plane hit the South Tower of the World Trade Center. About an hour ago, a half an hour actually, about at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, the second building collapsed. The top half of it actually collapsed. We know that there have been other fires reported around the nation. The White House has been evacuated. There are reports of a fire near the White House. There are also reports of a plane going down near the Pentagon. We know that the Washington Mall, there's a fire reported there as well.
And if you are looking at your screen right now, it looks like the second tower has collapsed. We are trying to confirm that for you.
Both towers are now down.
Both towers are now down. So both of the towers in the World Trade Center. We're also receiving reports. Media outlets, including CBS and NBC, are reporting the possibility of a third plane, a hijacked plane that is just about 25 minutes outside of the nation's capital, outside of Washington, D.C. at this hour. As Michaela noted, the Pentagon, it looks like it is on fire this hour. Our Washington Bureau Chief Peter Barnes had told us that the State Department is on fire. Not only the federal buildings in Washington, but also several hotels, office buildings also being evacuated. As Peter Barnes did mention, this is something that the United States has been training for some time.
And in fact, Peter told us just this morning that the Secret Service indeed did receive a warning earlier today that the White House would be the recipient of some sort of attack. And Peter Barnes, our Washington Bureau Chief, is looking into this more to find out if he can confirm those reports. Right now, we are going to go back to New York. Stacey Tisdale is not far. She mentioned to us earlier that she's about a 15-minute drive away from the site of the World Trade Center. Stacey's been following this story more. Stacey, what details can you give us at this moment?
I can confirm what Erica just brought up. The second tower at the World Trade Center has indeed collapsed. I'm very sad to report that there are reports that just prior to that happening, people were jumping out of the building. That's how chaotic the situation in downtown Manhattan has gotten. Now, the World Trade Center is in very close proximity to Wall Street, the New York Stock Exchange. We actually just were able to get a hold of a security guard at the New York Stock Exchange. He's checking floor to floor. He said that that building has indeed been evacuated. The NASDAQ is being evacuated. Our own Jean Lee is trying desperately to make her way back here, but public transportation in New York has basically come to a halt. There is trading going on, global trading going on, and markets have plummeted in response to what's happening to the United States. Our bond market is closed, but U.S. Treasury bonds are trading, and U.S. Treasury bonds are seen as a safe haven investment at times of trouble. And let me just explain to you a little bit how they work. A Treasury price and a Treasury yield move in opposite direction, the interest rate. When money is pouring into Treasuries like it is right now, it's going to jack up the price and drop the interest rate. Consequently, the yield on the 2-year Treasury note has fallen to 3.25%. That is an all-time low. I'm just trying to give you a sense of the amount of money just around the world that is pouring into the U.S. Treasury market. Excuse me. As I mentioned earlier, money is also pouring into gold. At last check, I hope one of our producers, our bureau chief, can get me a latest quote on gold. But at last check, it was up more than $6. This is a market that really has had really any activity over the past few years, but investors are just looking for any safe place for their cash. Now, that's a look at the financial picture, but I don't have to say anything about the visual picture. Take a look at those images for yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is where, as you can see, this is a live picture of the New York Center where the World Trade Center has. We've received reports just recently that the second building has collapsed about a half an hour ago. The first tower, the top half of the tower, which was the second tower to receive, to be hit by a plane, collapsed in half. And we've just received news that the second tower, the first tower that was hit, has also crashed. They've evacuated all of downtown New York, as Stacey has just been telling us now. It's chaotic. People terrified, running for their lives, even reports of people jumping out of the building. We don't have a confirmed number of people that are dead at this point. Stacey, maybe you can fill us in on what you know.
Michaela, if I can just add, the New York Stock Exchange has just come out and said that trading is indefinitely delayed. They were looking at possibly trying to resume things at 11 o'clock. NASDAQ has also temporarily suspended trading. It's both scenarios that we always thought were unlikely because you're looking at the picture.
Well, absolutely.
The approximate region of where the New York Stock Exchange is.
When a nation is under siege like this, trading seems almost ludicrous at this point, doesn't it, when people's lives are being lost?
But yeah, people's lives are being lost, and unfortunately, the United States is in a position that we are the heart of the global financial world, so we have to keep, the money has to keep flowing. We can, on top of this breakdown or collapse that you're seeing right now, and global economic collapse is something that could not that would just make this problem tremendously worse. The resources that the government and the U.S. security teams need would not be available. So you have also a frantic effort out there trying to prevent a global market meltdown, which an incident like that could trigger. Consequently, we are seeing people look for safe places for global money. The places of choice right now seem to be in U.S. Treasury securities. Our interest rates are plummeting because money is pouring in so quickly. The New York Stock Exchange says that if they did resume trading right now, both stock indices would open hundreds and hundreds of points lower. Consequently, there's also damage control and management going on to try to prevent an economic meltdown, because if on top of everything that's going on right now, if the money spigots turn off, we are in a tremendous amount of trouble.
That we are, Stacey. There are, of course, efforts around the nation at this hour, as we know, both in New York and Washington, D.C. We're going to go straight to Washington, D.C. Peter Barnes is in our bureau. Peter?
Local reports here that a second hijacked plane is now in the air over Virginia. We don't have any more details. I don't know if you've reported that yet, but I wanted to get that on in case you hadn't. An unconfirmed report of a second hijacked plane being tracked by federal authorities that has not yet obviously crashed into anything, but we'll monitor that situation as we continue our coverage. Do want to talk about the cyber attack component of this. The cyber, Stacey, back to you. Stacey?
She'll follow for us. We're just getting reports that a car bomb has exploded at the State Department. CNN is reporting that there's been another car bomb explosion at the State Department. I'll give it right back to you in just a second, Peter. But I was just telling our viewers how money is pouring into gold as a safe haven investment. And last time we talked, gold was up $6. Gold in London is already $16 higher an ounce. We'll go back over to Peter, who I'm sure is checking in on the State Department information.
No, actually, you beat me to that, Stacey, but I do want to tell you that I have called one of the cyber security firms here in the Washington area that does a lot of government business. iDefense has issued an alert to all customers this morning at 10 o'clock to be aware that there could be a cyber component to this apparent terrorist attack because of the coordinated nature of these bombings. And Michael Cheek at iDefense telling me this morning that people need to be on extra alert. IT professionals and computer security professionals in private and public sector need to be on extra alert. Right now, according to Michael, his company has found no evidence of a cyber attack, but he believes this company has set out an alert to its customers to be on the watch for a potential cyber attack, be on extra alert. We've also tried to put a call into the National Infrastructure Protection Center, which is the FBI agency that monitors the nation's critical infrastructure. We have not been able to reach anyone there, but we're monitoring that situation. We can't even get on the website. As you know, that's been difficult for a lot of us because of all of the traffic on the internet to news sites. And Michael Cheek at iDefense telling me that a lot of news sites are actually down because servers are overwhelmed as Americans seek to get as much information as possible about this breaking story.
We know that Stacey's been telling us that all sorts of communication in and out of New York has been affected, but how about Washington? We know that in New York, cell phones were not working correctly, subways, tunnels, bridges closed, buses shut down. What about in Washington?
Yes, we know. Okay, I've got to confirm now this car bomb at the State Department, confirmation of that as well. No trouble here with cell phones so far, and also no trouble with regular communications. We are having the same trouble as you are trying to log on to internet websites. As I just mentioned, we tried to get to the National Infrastructure Protection Center website to see if the FBI has issued any kind of cyber attack alert in caution against cyber terrorism, but we do know, again, at least one security firm, iDefense, has issued an alert to IT professionals around the country.
And Peter, we're also curious, we know that this seems to be concentrated here on American soil. Are there any reports of anything else going on around the world? Because we know that a Palestinian group has accepted responsibility.
Okay, let me jump in here. That hijacked 747 has crashed in Pennsylvania. That, according to various news reports, that was the one plane that we knew there was a report of a hijacking of that. And,
Peter, this is the plane that was said to be 25 minutes outside of Washington, D.C.?
Correct. That's we just now have a report that that plane has crashed in Pennsylvania. We'll get more details for you as we get them. Of course, everybody in the news and business today is reporting everybody else's information. I believe this was off of CNN.
CBS and NBC, I believe, were also reporting that.
Absolutely concerted effort.
It is, as Peter just said, that 747 just crashing in Pennsylvania. Yes, Peter.
I want to tell you one anecdotal story. Monique Conrad, my colleague, and Gary Nuremberg are both out on the street right now, and I'm getting some more news here. what? The Pentagon just collapsed. The Pentagon a section of the Pentagon has collapsed as a result of a potential airplane crash into the Pentagon. As you know, we've been showing you shots of the Pentagon building on fire. The Pentagon, of course, is a flat building, only about 10 or 12 stories high, and obviously not the kind of collapse that we saw there with the World Trade Center towers. But now we have a report, as you can see on your screen there, that is the burning, the building that is burning. There is a report again of a plane that crashed into the Pentagon as part of this apparent coordinated terrorist attack. And now a section of the Pentagon has collapsed. That building, of course, along with most of the major government buildings here in Washington and many of the private commercial buildings and hotels around government buildings have been evacuated.
Peter, that
yeah.
section of the Pentagon that has just collapsed, as you said, there were reports of a plane that may have gone into the Pentagon that had not been confirmed. Eyewitness reports were what we were hearing, that a plane may have hit the Pentagon. Are we hearing any more? Is that what, in effect, has happened to the Pentagon, and is that what caused the fire and the ultimate collapse of this section of the building?
Well, the only thing that I've got on that is that there was a report on a local station of an eyewitness who said that she saw a plane fly into the Pentagon this morning, but we have no other confirmation at this point as to exactly what has caused that fire. There were reports of explosions, of course. I do want to tell you that Monique Conrad and Gary Nuremberg from our bureau are now out on the National Mall and near the Pentagon complex. Monique just phoned in, and she'll be phoning in to give you a live report herself in a moment. But she did say that security around the White House is extremely high. The entire complex has been cordoned off by Secret Service and law enforcement officials. People being kept away from the complex. She reports one anecdote of an Arab-looking person with a silver briefcase walking up one of the streets near the White House. And as she was watching this man, he was stopped and arrested by Secret Service agents. Obviously, we don't know if there's any real threat there. And of course, given, I think you said that a Palestinian group has claimed responsibility for this?
That's what the reports have been given, yes.
We've been told a Palestinian group has claimed responsibility for the planes hitting the World Trade Center. I believe, Michaela, that's all we had for the World Trade Center.
Peter, why don't we recap? So far, you've just given us news that a portion of the Pentagon has collapsed. We know also that the whole attack started with the first plane crashing into the World Trade Center. Since then, the World Trade Center has collapsed in a heap in New York. We also know that there have been reports of, you've recently told us about a plane crashing in Pennsylvania. That same plane was reported to be 25 minutes just outside of D.C. Do we know what caused that plane crash?
There was a report that that plane was a hijacked plane that was en route to Washington, and obviously we don't know what happened, but there's now a report that that hijacked plane, as you just said, has crashed in Pennsylvania. We don't know where.
We also know that, tell us more about the White House. At this point, it's been evacuated, the West Wing, or has the entire White House been evacuated?
No, the entire White House complex, Treasury, old executive office buildings, hotels near the White House, the Mayflower, office buildings near the White House. And as I told you this morning, this has, of course, been a nightmare scenario for government policymakers in the security area, national security experts. They've known for a long time, for many years, that these facilities were vulnerable to these kinds of attack. Ironically, you know, as you recall, one of Tom Clancy's novels ended with a jet planes crashing into the White House.
Unfortunately, we've seen several movie scripts that are based on just this kind of thing.
Yeah, and as you know, there was an incident about 3 or 4 years ago, as we started our coverage this morning, of a single-engine prop plane that flew into the White House during the Clinton administration, showing just how vulnerable that building was to an attack from the air. Now, since then, since the Oklahoma City bombing, since the World Trade Center bombing, since that incident with the plane, security around the White House has been, and many government buildings, has been beefed up, particularly the Capitol and the White House, with huge barriers erected. Pennsylvania Avenue shut down, guard posts put there, gigantic steel barriers and large potting plants designed to make sure that a truck like the Ryder truck that Oklahoma City bomber Tim McVeigh drove into the Murrow Federal Building in Oklahoma City, designed to make sure that those kinds of trucks loaded with explosives could not get anywhere close to these buildings. And that is actually probably one of the good stories, sadly, one of the silver linings of the stories today. It could have been much worse. It could have been much worse.
Any word when the president will be addressing the nation again, Peter?
Well, we know he's in the air. It's about a 2.5 to 3 hour flight from Florida. He got on a plane early this morning. We anticipate he'll be arriving most likely at Andrews Air Force Base, probably within the next hour. And then, of course, Marine One helicopters will get him to a safe place. We doubt, obviously, that given the White House has been evacuated, that they're not going to put the president at the White House.
Obviously, they're going to increase security around him at this point, too.
And yes, that's right. And we also know that, the White House has got other safe locations it can take key government officials to keep them safe in bunkers around the city.
Peter, has there been any concern expressed over the fact that President Bush did, in fact, board a plane? We know that he did speak to the nation earlier today, just after 10 o'clock Eastern time, calling this a terrorist attack. And you had told us earlier that he was en route from Sarasota, Florida. Was there any talk of concern that maybe the president should not be in the air?
No, there's not going to be a problem in that regard because, first of all, the Air Force One is the most heavily protected plane in the air. I am sure that the Pentagon has scrambled jets to escort Air Force One back to Washington. We haven't, the Pentagon is closed. Nobody's answering phones there, obviously, but I would say with almost 100% certainty that the president's plane is being escorted by fighter jets all the way back up from here to Andrews Air Force Base. You said he got the plane about 10. As I said, it's about a 2.5-hour, 3-hour flight from Sarasota, so he would be arriving here, close to 1 o'clock our time. Now, the other thing to know, of course, there's an entire command center on Air Force One. The president travels with the most sensitive communications equipment, as I'm sure in contact with all of his top national security people and the Pentagon officials. They're sitting there working right now. You better believe that.
Peter, we have reports of injuries and even deaths, unfortunately, in New York. Obviously, with such a disaster occurring, thousands of people have been injured. But you've been telling us today about the Pentagon just recently the Pentagon, a section of it has collapsed. Were there reports of injuries there, or even from this plane crashing in Pennsylvania earlier?
No, we have no reports, but obviously that plane crash would have caught a lot of workers going into that complex by surprise this morning. So we have to assume that there are people injured and dead. We also have to assume that with a hijacked airplane that those people sadly are also injured and dead. We are obviously monitoring the situation. Our producers are listening to everything, and as I said, Gary Nuremberg and Monique Conrad are at the White House complex and on the Mall to try and get more information. They'll be phoning in reports. Now I know we're going to go to Stacey Tisdale in New York for an update there. Stacey.
Okay, I have to hear Peter.
Stacey, yes. Can you hear us? Stacey? Go ahead, Stacey.
Peter, sorry about that. Just the latest developments. There is a very high profile next week New York City primaries for mayor of New York. Those primaries have been called off. We've been telling you about the pandemonium in the Wall Street area. Also, apparently now it's a similar kind of mass chaotic scene at JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark as those airports have been closed. Just to update you on the markets, the NASDAQ still claims it's going to try to open in about 45 minutes. They've evacuated the building. That feels a little unlikely. The New York Stock Exchange has closed trading indefinitely. And we'll let you know about that. It doesn't look like the New York Stock Exchange is going to open again today. And, we can only question when it would happen.
And Stacey, you just mentioned that next week's mayoral primaries have been called off. Yes. Mayor Rudolph Giuliani, are we hearing any word from him yet? I know Gene Lee had told us he was set to address the city. We have not heard anything from him at this hour, as far as I know. Are you receiving word of what time he may address New York?
We'll find that out for you right away, Erica, but right now, for that the primary delay right now is just a headline, so there's nothing more to add to that story right now. But just finish updating you on trading. The stock exchanges and commodity exchanges in Chicago have been closed, and the Instinet electronic network, we were talking about the electronic exchanges, has indeed closed in the United States and Canada.
All right, Stacey, we're going to leave you for a second. We will come back to you. We know you have continuous updates for us, Stacey Tisdale, in our New York bureau. At this time, we're going to turn to David Stephen. He's standing by here in San Francisco in our Tech Live newsroom. David, we know this has hit nearly all corners of the nation, of course, everyone affected at this point. And we know that the Sears Tower has been closed in Chicago. Several buildings evacuated, obviously, in both New York and Washington, D.C. You have some reports for us on this hour at efforts here in San Francisco. We know the Pacific Exchange has halted trading. What else is going on here out in California?
Well, we're getting reports here in San Francisco of some of the more prominent trading houses being evacuated. For instance, calls into the Transamerica building, the pyramid-shaped building that is prominent on the the San Francisco skyline indicated chaos, that people are leaving the building. There's no indication that there's any problem there, but clearly they're sorting out security issues in the wake of everything that's been going on in the 4 other cities around the country. Meanwhile, the San Jose Police Department confirms to TechTV that they've activated their emergency management team, obviously to sort out a plan to deal with what's been going on, to take a look at what their security issues are around the Silicon Valley and how they might protect them in case something does happen. The San Francisco Mayor's Office confirms that the emergency management team here is meeting at this time, taking a look at the situation that's been going on in 4 cities around the country, gearing up to figure out what needs to be protected here and how they can best go about doing it. The Mayor, Willie Brown, the Mayor of San Francisco, had been on his way to New York today. That plan was canceled in light, obviously, of everything that was going on. We're going to be checking in a bit later to get a sense of the security issues, what they're looking to watch out for, what they're trying to protect here in the San Francisco and Silicon Valley area. Erica, back to you.
David Stevenson in the Tech Live newsroom, thank you for that update. We will check in with you a little bit later. Peter Barnes, we're going to head straight to Washington now. Peter Barnes, you have an update for us?
Yes, again, we're sharing information with other news organizations. There's a report now that a plane, a second plane of some kind of jet plane, was possibly a hijacked plane, was intercepted over the Pentagon by a jet fighter. That's all we have right now, but apparently the report, again unconfirmed, is that a second plane was heading to the Pentagon. We're not sure if it was a large jet, but there is a report that it was intercepted by some kind of fighter plane, a jet fighter, and we're not sure what happened to it, if it was steered away from the Pentagon or shot down. That's breaking right now. We'll get those details to you in just a moment.
All right.
Thank you, Peter, for that update.
We are receiving word, as you can tell, about the latest developments from all around the nation. We have reporters in Seattle. We have our reporters here in San Francisco, in California. Peter Barnes is in Washington giving us the latest. He just moments ago told us that a second plane was intercepted over the Pentagon by some sort of jet fighter plane. He'll be bringing us details as well. Stacey Tisdale herself in New York, as is Jean Lee, our NASDAQ reporter, who unfortunately was evacuated from her post at the NASDAQ. We have no idea if she's managed to make it to our New York bureau. We're hoping to get word from her. Monique Conrad, Gary Nuremberg, Peter Barnes are in Washington to bring us the latest. Erica Hill and I are here in San Francisco. We can recap you on the events of today. It has been a catastrophic day, to say the least. We thought it just started out with an attack on the World Trade Center, a devastating attack early this morning, just before 9, and it has ballooned to an all-out terrorist attack, it would seem, on the nation.
In fact, even before we heard of some of the other incidents happening around the nation, after these first 2 plane crashes, which happened within just 18 minutes of each other, 2 planes hitting the towers of the World Trade Center. Both of the towers have now collapsed in New York. Just moments after that, President Bush addressed the nation, calling this a terrorist attack. Not long after, we did learn that the Pentagon was on fire. There was some speculation. An eyewitness had told a local news affiliate in Washington, D.C. that they had seen a plane going by the Pentagon. We now know the Pentagon was not only on fire, not too long ago, a certain section of the building did collapse. Buildings evacuated, obviously, across Manhattan, across Washington, D.C., and not only government buildings and office buildings, we should say, hotels, transportation has been effectively shut down. The FAA grounding all planes in the United States. Those that are in the air will be rerouted. We are being told international flights are going to be routed to Canada. If you are trying to get in or out of Manhattan, don't. Subways, bridges, tunnels, reportedly buses shut down, no cell phone communication there.
As well, we've been finding out that not only in New York, but in other areas, New York in particular is having, obviously, many of the satellite systems for major broadcasting companies and facilities were on top of the World Trade Organization, or World Trade Center. So obviously that has affected information in and out as well. iDefense has warned that there could be a cyber component to this attack, that they're in conjunction with this attack. They have issued a warning for all of us to be on alert that some information could be less than secure at best on the internet.
And iDefense, a security company that works with several of the institutions in Washington, Peter Barnes has also told us there was word from several media outlets, including CBS, NBC, D.C., reporting the possibility of a hijacked plane about 25 minutes outside of D.C. Then we heard not too long ago that a 747 did in fact crash in Pennsylvania into a complex. We are hearing that is the same plane that was suspected of being another hijacked plane.
And speaking of planes, we've told you that the FAA has grounded all planes. Any planes that are in the air now are being rerouted. Any international planes are being redirected rather, to Canada. Andrew Hahn, the director of our TechTV Labs, joins us now with some more information from the FAA. Andrew, what can you tell us?
Thanks, Michaela. You know, there's a lot of resources on the web to find out information about what's going on the web. You can ping different sites to see if their news organizations are up. A lot of them are down. Fox News is down. CNN is totally down. I've been pinging them all morning, and these guys can't get it back up because there's so much web traffic. Everybody's going to the internet to find out what's going on. I downloaded a program a little earlier called AirNav, and I'll show you that right now. I'll give you a little full screen of that. What this does is it tracks a lot of the airlines that are in the air right now. I have a world view, and you can check out which airlines they are, their flight numbers, and their route information. Now, if you notice here, right around this area, this is the United States, obviously. A lot of the airplanes are being diverted away from the United States to Canada, back to Europe. This shows you details as well of other areas in the world. There's the North Atlantic, the Pacific map, etc. And if you look at the North Atlantic, you can see that all these planes are turning around, either going back to Europe or they're going to Canada. So if you're curious, you can check out, I think that's British Airways that I have up right now, flight 4521. This updates as it goes along. You can also download a quicker update. I think it updates every 5 or 10 minutes. So if you're looking for information on flights, you're trying to figure out where they're landing, and if you have a loved one that's on a flight, you can go to this site and just download it. Thanks a lot. Back to you guys.
All right, we'll take it. We're going to thank, that's Andrew Hahn from our TechTV Labs giving us the latest on the FAA and what they are doing with planes that are currently in the air, being rerouted. Right now, we're going to go to Stacey Tisdale, who is live in our New York bureau. Any more news for us at this minute?
Just to add to that, some of the websites that are particularly being mentioned that are down, CNN.com, ABC.com, and MSNBC.com. And just to update you on the latest on trading activity, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission Chairman Harvey Pitt has issued a statement saying that U.S. securities markets have decided not to open for trading after several aircraft crashed into buildings in New York and Washington. Pitt said in a statement that trading will resume, quote, as soon as it is practicable to do so. So as expected, the markets here are not resuming trading, but as far as the people that are out there working to try to keep us from a global economic meltdown, we have a lot of money coming into U.S. Treasury securities that are being traded around the world. Consequently, I know you can't see it because we're not having access to the live quotes right now, but U.S. interest rates are plummeting. The more money that comes into our treasury markets, the more it pushes rates lower. Our interest rates are plummeting. The dollar is really taking a big hit. A lot of money coming into gold because that's also viewed as a safe haven investment. At our last check, gold in London was up about $17 an ounce. Exchanges around the United States, Philadelphia is closed. I believe Michaela and Erica said earlier the Pacific exchanges are closed. In New York, the New York Mercantile Exchange is closed. Obviously, trading halted at the New York Stock Exchange and at the NASDAQ. This area that has been hit, the World Trade Center and the surrounding financial district, was home to some of the biggest brokerages in the country. Merrill Lynch down there at the World Financial Center, Solomon Smith Barney actually in the World Trade Center, Morgan Stanley Dean Witter actually in the World Trade Center, but both towers have collapsed. So we, of course, have been unable to get through to any of our sources there, and our hearts go out to their families because I can imagine it's been a much more difficult quest for them to try to get information about the area. But Wall Street is just a war zone. There is mass chaos. There are people jumping out of buildings. There are businesses closed. Subways are shut in Manhattan. Airports are shut. This is starting to have a global impact. I see on the wires that British Airways has canceled flights to the United States. Flights into the international flights are being diverted to Canada. So the global impact of this, we're just at the tip of the iceberg, and we're just going to try to keep you updated on some of the efforts that are being made to keep us from also falling into an economic meltdown and some of the technology efforts that are being made. But right now things are just it's a state of shock here. That's all I have to say.
That it is. I think a state of shock across the nation. And as you did say, Stacey, we'd like to echo that. Our thoughts and our hearts do go out to the folks who are trying to find out information about loved ones who may be in any of these areas. We're going to take a short break right now on Tech Live. Please stay with us. We will be bringing you the latest here from San Francisco, in addition to our reports from New York, from Washington. Stay with us. We're coming right back.
So listen, can I call you sometime?
Yeah, I'd like that.
Great.
Here, my home number's on the back.
Excellent.
Hey, could I get that number? Yeah, me too.
$5 each?
Sure.
If life were like some internet providers, your personal information would go to anyone willing to pay for it. Switch to Earthlink, the #1 provider of the real internet. Call 1-800-880-1255. Join now and you'll get a free color printer and scanner. With Earthlink, your personal information stays personal, and you get fast direct connection to the internet, instant messaging, and more local access numbers than any other ISP. We'll even help you tell your friends your new email address, all for just $21.95 a month. So switch to Earthlink today. Get a free color printer and scanner, and keep your personal information personal.
Now, if you like this, you're gonna love these. Unlisted.
Call 1-800-880-1255. Earthlink.
To you, it's a PC, but to your kids, it's a laboratory, a museum, or a rainforest. The compact Presario 5000T with Intel Pentium 3 processor. It's a place where your child can explore a world of ideas. And it's just $779. To buy now, call 1-800-336-1411 and get a free compact printer and a free upgrade to Windows XP Home Edition. Hey, why just take your kids to school when you can take them farther than they ever dreamed?
Careful. That's a Zenith digital TV you're looking at. From big to small to flat to thin, you can't escape the power of Zenith Digital.
Good morning, everybody. September 11th, 2001, a day that none of us will soon forget. Some terrible explosions are devastating New York City and Washington, D.C., and there are new reports that just a few moments ago, another commercial airliner has crashed at Somerset County Airport in western Pennsylvania. That is about 80 miles southeast of Pittsburgh. The aircraft is said to be a Boeing 767. All of these disasters are the result of terrorist attacks. President Bush has called it a national tragedy.
If you're just joining us this morning, we want to start to bring you up to date. In New York, 2 commercial airliners crashed into the towers of the World Trade Center this morning. The 2 towers, the second tallest in the world, are no longer standing. One of the planes was a hijacked American Airlines plane, which had taken off from Boston's Logan Airport en route to Los Angeles. It's not clear where the other airliner had come from, but the south tower of the World Trade Center collapsed about 1 hour after the crash. The north tower collapsed about 30 minutes ago. There are no accurate reports of casualty numbers at this point, but it's feared that deaths and injuries will number in the thousands. Just so you get a little bit of the scope here, the tower is, like I said, the second tallest in the world. The average daily population, 50,000 workers and 70,000 visitors visit the World Trade Center every day. The construction, 200,000 tons of steel, 425,000 cubic yards of concrete. All of that has come crashing down now.
Now let's bring you up to date on the nation's capital. Another plane has hit the Pentagon. The building has now been evacuated, as has the White House, the Capitol building, the State Department, the NSC. In fact, all federal buildings are closed in Washington. Congressional leadership has been evacuated to a secure location. The Sears Tower in Chicago has also been evacuated as a safety measure. As a result of these terrorist attacks, all aircraft in this country have been grounded today. All the financial markets have been closed. Let's go now straight to New York and Tech Live's Stacey Tisdale. Stacey, bring us up to date.
Hey, Steve, just to follow up on what you were saying, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission Chairman Harvey Pitt did indeed issue a statement saying that trading will resume, quote, as soon as it is practicable to do so. But when you look at the mass destruction that is taking place in our nation right now, you have to wonder if that's going to be a matter of hours, with the NASDAQ still saying that they're going to try to resume trading in 27 minutes, or if it's going to be in a matter of days. Now, we had the Instinet, the electronic exchanges were trading earlier, which brought up some interesting questions about what the situations in which those exchanges would be good end, but Instinet has also closed. We're checking on Island. I believe that's closed as well. And just to give you an update on some of the other latest market activities, money is pouring into U.S. Treasury markets. Consequently, I won't give you the technical explanation of how that works, but that's pushing our interest rates sharply lower. Our dollar is falling sharply lower. Investors are putting money into safe havens. Gold is up about $17 an ounce, and I'm just getting reports oil prices are soaring. They're up 12% in London trading already, but a lot of the commodity exchanges here in the United States, the New York Mercantile Exchange, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, the Chicago Board of Options, most of the commodity exchanges across the United States have indeed closed. But we're going to keep you up to date on the NASDAQ. That market, they were still saying 11:30, which is just about 26 minutes away. That, of course, Eastern time. The building has been evacuated. We have our own Jean Lee trying to make her way back here. And Steve, I have to tell you, one of the most disturbing things that I'm hearing is that a lot of the emergency teams that have been dispatched in the financial district, in the Wall Street area, the World Trade Center area, have simply been unable to get to the fires. They've been unable to get to the people. Lots of reports of people just jumping out of windows there. It's a very, very, very chaotic scene down there. New York airports have been closed. We're hearing reports of a lot of mania and mayhem at Kennedy JFK Airport, at LaGuardia Airport, at Newark Airport. The subway systems are down here. Cell phone service is off. I remember when I worked in the World Trade Center during the last explosion, it wasn't obviously nearly the type of destruction, but there's so many satellites on top of the building, there's so many different radio antennas for networks around the world that it's knocked out a lot of technological services that originate from that building. Steve?
Stacey, I want you to stick with us for a second. Give us, for people who are just joining us, give us some indication of where you are physically in relation to the World Trade Center.
Okay, we're still gonna, that's one thing, since we have our producers there, please work on getting us a map of New York, but the World Trade Center is at the southern lower tip of Manhattan. It's the financial district. It's at the very tip of Manhattan. The district above that is called Tribeca. The district above that is called is where we are right now in Chelsea. And distance-wise, it would take about, on a good day, it would probably take me about 20 minutes to walk down to the World Trade Center from here, 25 minutes. But we are on the west side of Manhattan along with the World Trade Center, and during our next break I'm going to run outside and just poke my head out because we share that common strip of the West Side Highway that goes around the west side of Manhattan. What was so interesting, Stephen, you and Kristen are joining us, when this happened, the World Trade Center, my immediate thought is, because I've worked on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, is how close it is to the New York Stock Exchange. The World Trade Center, a stone's throw walk from the New York Stock Exchange, and that's where we saw, that's kind of how this pattern progressed. And we had, and I'm glad this is a picture that's up, because if you notice the smoke up high, Steve, and the smoke down low, this is what a lot of authorities are citing now. It looks like there was some bomb fire activity coming from the ground as well. We've been hearing all these additional reports of explosions in the financial area. If you look at the smoke pattern, the lower parts are starting to fill in, even though the origination of the crash was up at the top of the World Trade Center. But this whole financial district, Steve, I'm glad you pointed out the proximity, is really centered around the World Trade Center. That whole tip of Manhattan, as you're seeing, it's one of the most concentrated business areas in the world, and it is right now in just pandemonium.
Yes. Stacey, it's Kristen. I wanted to ask you, what offices do you know that are in the World Trade Center? I understand, I think that Merrill Lynch and Lehman have their headquarters.
The World Trade Center, the two towers are attached to the World Financial Center. There's just kind of a skywalk that attaches them. Merrill Lynch's headquarters is in the World Financial Center. Okay. We have, but Kristen, I mean, it's the World Trade Center, it's a total who's who. You have Solomon Smith Barney in there, you have Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter in there, you have Cantor Fitzgerald, which is one of the U.S. primary dealers that makes a market in U.S. bonds. You see that footage that we're showing when that tower actually collapsed. And just watching that slowly fall down, that building that you see to the right there, that's the World Financial Center that's still standing, and that's where Merrill Lynch's headquarters are. But it's just a house of cards in there. There's so many trading floors there. I've done a zillion interviews from Morgan Stanley Dean Witter's trading floor. They're so high up in the building. This happened so fast that I can't. Just the thought of it seems an almost impossibility that those people would have been able to be evacuated. And those are a lot of the people, Steve, Kristen, and I, we've talked to. A lot of the analysts that we speak to come from that area, and we can't get through to them on cell phones. We can't get through to them on landlines. Our heart goes out to their families, who just must be going crazy trying to get through to them. But the really most disturbing thing is that U.S. emergency rescue workers are having such a difficult time getting through to these people.
Stacey, we also know that those towers on a good day will hold in excess of 100,000 people. Now, this happened at 9 o'clock in the morning. Would it have been primarily workers just arriving at that point?
Yes, and I know we're having some of our own satellite problems right now. It could actually be related to this incident. That's a good point, Steve. Try to think the exact time the bomb went off. Most of the workers in the financial district are going to arrive to work between 6 and 8 a.m. Eastern time. So this attack, obviously, we'll be getting details, was a very calculated, very planned attack. The time was definitely targeted to be one of the most busy times of the World Trade Center. And Steve, I'm glad you also, the point you also make me think of is a lot of the New York subway lines, the subways in the surrounding areas, all have stations or meeting or in the World Trade Center because it's the last stop in Manhattan before you head off to Brooklyn. It's unfortunately, we're talking about peak rush hour, and that just, you know, sends those numbers up by tens of thousands, unfortunately.
Stacey, you were also talking about how it looked like there were some secondary fires that have been started below the Twin Towers as a result of the collapses. Give us an idea of the kinds of buildings that are at the foot and in the immediate proximity of the Twin Towers.
And, you know, as you're looking at that picture right now, Steve, and especially at the top smoke, which is originating from the Twin Towers,
right,
those buildings look a little small. They're not at all. It's just the Twin Towers is such an enormity. There are a lot of many skyscrapers and several, just, you know, in times people forget that the Hudson River, which is the water that you're seeing there behind the World Trade Center, is on a big fault. And there's always kind of almost a joke here, you know, the financial district is on one of the biggest faults in the country, and none of the buildings here are earthquake-proof. Not only are they not earthquake-proof, we are talking about a lot of glass skyscrapers. That's what that area is dominated by, so I can just imagine some of the pandemonium, and consequently, Steve, unfortunately, we have just numerous reports of people jumping out of buildings.
Just awful. All right, Stacey, you hang in there for us. We're going to get back to you, okay?
Yeah,
thanks, Steve. Thanks,
the scope of this being felt worldwide. I was just reading on the Associated Press that Alitalia has now called back its planes, which were en route to the U.S. We want to go to Washington, D.C. now, where Monique Conrad is standing by. Monique, tell us what you have there.
Kristen, well, I just came back from the area near the White House. The White House, of course, is located at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Next to it is the old executive office building, which sits at the corner of Pennsylvania and 17th, and that's where I and Chris Kettlewell, our photographer, were just a little bit ago. There we saw throngs of people leaving office buildings and businesses in the immediate vicinity have been evacuated. We saw banks closing up. We saw lots of people leaving the area, and there was, of course, a high police Secret Service presence around that area. About 10:20, as we were standing there shooting events, we were shooed back by police there in a very hurried fashion. Everyone was pushed back another block to about 18th and Pennsylvania. At that point, we did see a police car swoop in. 3 officers jumped out and stopped a man wearing a hard hat, carrying a level, carrying a silver box, and they were very concerned about that. It didn't seem as though anything had become of that, but as you can imagine, that's just one of the indications of what such a high alert Washington and especially the vicinity around the White House is at. Also, there is just a ton of traffic, as you can imagine. People actually are very calm here, many trying to get out on their cell phones, having a lot of trouble doing that. Additionally, though, what we found when we spoke to people is that they were all evacuated, of course, but they were just standing around trying to figure out what to do. Many people's cars were in buildings that had been locked. and they were not accessible. Some people were trying to figure out whether they should go home via our Washington subway system called the Metro. We did speak to some people coming off of the Metro. It is open at this point, but people who were leaving were telling us that, of course, the Pentagon stop is closed and that the Metro is routing people around the Pentagon. Again, people are trying to figure out exactly how they get home, trying to brave traffic to get home, trying to probably call loved ones on cell phones and having some trouble, though some people are getting in.
Monique,
Kristen?
do you know any more about the plane that crashed into the Pentagon? What can you tell us about that?
I don't have any information regarding the plane crashing at the Pentagon because I was at the White House. I'm sorry, I can't inform you on that at this moment, but we'll try to get that to you as soon as we have more information.
Monique, also, we just have a report that a plane has crashed at Camp David. Anything about that?
I'm sorry, I don't have anything to add to that report, but of course we will be looking into it and getting back as soon as we have more information.
Okay, just want to tell you that that report actually comes from CBS, so we'll get back to you on that. Right now, on the phone we have Mike McCarron from San Francisco International Airport. Mike, are you with us?
I'm with you.
You are head of communications there?
I'm Assistant Deputy Director here at the airport.
Tell us what's going on.
Well, right now we have a severe security clampdown, basically. All the security checkpoints have been closed down. No one is going out to the boarding areas. Anyone coming to the curb, they are asked to remove the car immediately or else they'll be towed. And all of our flights here, as well as my understand, all throughout the country have been grounded.
Now, what are you doing with the people in the airport?
Well, right now we're just accommodating them in the lobbies, but we're asking people to call before they even leave their house so they won't get here and be stranded. So right now we're just letting the people know that we don't know what's going on. The FAA has grounded all the flights, and until we get a word that the flights can take off, there's no reason to even come to the airport.
Mike, how about planes that are already en route to places? This happened at about 9 o'clock
Right.
Eastern time. What about planes that had already taken off?
Already, from my understanding, the FAA is asking them to divert to the nearest available airfield. We are preparing for any diverts from both overseas, international flights and domestic flights, and we're just standing by to get more information from the FAA.
And so, Mike, you still have planes en route? You still will be landing planes at SFO?
That's correct. If we will take planes if they need a divert field.
But nothing is going out?
That's correct.
Now, how are people handling it there? How are they handling all of this?
Most are, they are shocked as just the whole situation's broken across the Northeast as everyone else is when we woke up this morning. But they understand the situation and they are taking it in stride.
Now, this is going to sound like a strange question. I don't want to raise any panic here, but have you had any problems of not being able to get in touch with aircraft in our area, in our airspace?
None that I'm aware of.
So no problems in our terminal control area as far as aircraft that aren't reporting in?
That's my understanding. We have not heard of any problem.
Where do you go from here at SFO?
Well, right now, once again, we're going to have to kind of get our heads together with the FAA, the FBI, and the local police and security officials here and determine what's the next action. When the ground stop is lifted, it's going to take several hours, maybe a day or better, to uncork the system because you have planes and aircraft out of the area, and it's just going to take a while to get this on track.
Now, Mike, we pointed out to everybody that you're with San Francisco International. Have you heard anything from Oakland?
No, I haven't been in contact with anyone in Oakland, but I would imagine a similar situation there.
Okay.
Mike, how closely are you in contact with the FAA? Are you speaking with them every few minutes?
Yes. They're part of we've activated our Emergency Operations Center, and they have a representative in there or on the phone, so we are in touch with them.
Okay, and I imagine that's going on at airports throughout the country today.
Very same thing.
Mike McCarron, Director of Communications at SFO, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to go now back to New York. Stacey Tisdale is standing by there for us. Stacey?
I have some new developments for you, Kristen. New York Mayor Rudolph Giuliani has evacuated Lower Manhattan and is asking people to migrate north. Our own Jean Lee, in our efforts to get from the NASDAQ market site to our New York bureau, was also moved with the crowd north. People are using Central Park, which is on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. It separates the Upper West Side of Manhattan from the Upper East Side of Manhattan as kind of a safe haven. Seems like there's a big migration towards the Central Park area. Also, next Tuesday was supposed to be primary day for the mayoral race, a race that, believe it or not, was getting some international attention. That has indeed been delayed. Let me give you some of the latest developments I've heard. As Steve mentioned, we've heard that there was a plane crash in Camp David. We have heard, we reported earlier that a lot of U.S. international flights were being diverted to Canada. We are hearing that airports in Canada are closed. That according to MSNBC. United Airlines has its global air service on ground stop status. United thinking the best thing to do is to stay out of the air. And most disturbing, Steve, unfortunately, the FAA is reporting that several planes are unaccounted for at this time. But the latest developments from here that I wanted to bring you up to date on, that FAA report is according to Sky. The latest developments here that I wanted to bring you up to date on is there seems to be a mass migration from the southern tip of Manhattan, which is where this whole World Financial Center, financial district is. That's where you're looking now, where those blazes are. And as you see, as the pictures come towards us a bit, there's a lot of the smaller buildings that aren't as engulfed in smoke. That's when you're heading north. You are getting a push from everybody in that area to move to the northern part of Manhattan. When you get to the northern part of Manhattan, you get to Central Park. It separates the east side from the west side. A lot of big migration there, Kristen.
How are people doing that? I mean, Manhattan's tough to get around on a good day. The subways are shut down. The tunnels out of Manhattan are shut down. Are they going by car, by foot?
Kristen, as it's chaotic, as you might imagine. I'm hearing there's a lot of mania, a lot of craziness in the streets. Subways are closed, buses are closed. Unfortunately, something just came over the wires that I have to report. The director of the World Trade Center said that up to 10,000 people could have been in that and the tower collapse. It seems like the point that they're trying to make here is that it has no estimate of survivors, and it is reporting, the World Trade Center director is saying up to 10,000 people could have been in the towers themselves, let alone the surrounding areas. And our bureau chief also just pointed out to me that so much debris is falling around in that lower Manhattan area. As you can see, this picture that you're looking at right there, where the smoke is kind of to the middle left side of your screen, that building on the right that is kind of untouched in smoke is the World Financial Center. That houses Dow Jones, that houses Merrill Lynch, that houses several of the biggest brokerage houses, and it also houses Deutsche Bank, which has actually, Kristen, one of the biggest trading floors in the world. So the fallout is crazy. The migration north that Mayor Giuliani called for was, of course, very necessary in terms of safety, but you can imagine the pandemonium that it's causing on the streets of New York.
Yeah, it's hard to even grasp the magnitude of this at this point. Stacey Tisdale, thank you very much. We'll be checking back with you.
We have been talking to Stacey Tisdale in New York, where the situation is chaotic, to say the least. It is also chaotic in the nation's capital, where the Pentagon has been attacked. All the federal buildings have been closed down. And our own Peter Barnes joins us from there with the very latest. Peter, what have you got?
Steve, I just got off the phone with retired Admiral Eric McVaden. He's a former Rear Admiral who is himself a former fighter pilot, and he had some speculation, only speculation, on what may be happening here. He says that he thinks this is a very well thought out and very seriously planned attack. He points out that as a pilot himself, if you're fighting a jet aircraft, an F-18 or an F-22 or something like that, you know, those are fairly easy to maneuver. But he points out, as a pilot, to try and maneuver a 747 or an Airbus or a large jet directly into the World Trade Center or some other structure like the Pentagon takes enormous skill. But Stacey has some breaking news in New York. Stacey.
Yes, this, according to Reuters, the Afghan Taliban government has called a news conference. We don't have any details about what they're going to speak about, but this is breaking that this Afghan Taliban government has indeed called a news conference. And American Airlines has officially confirmed that it is missing 2 aircrafts. But one thing I want to point out, of course, we are all waiting to hear what the Afghan Taliban government has to say. We don't even know if it's related yet, but they have indeed called a news conference. Let's go back to our bureau chief in Washington, Peter Barnes.
On that news, Stacey, I would speculate that the Afghan government is going to deny any involvement in this case. As you know, the Afghans have been harboring Osama bin Laden, who I would have to think, the Islamic terrorist, who a millionaire or billionaire who has funded many terrorist campaigns around the world, who has promised, who's an enemy, a sworn enemy of the United States, and is on the 10 most wanted list for the FBI, that the government there, the Taliban government, is probably going to deny any involvement in this. As you know, the United States attacked several facilities in northern Afghanistan a few years back, trying to get to Osama bin Laden's camp there, quite well bunkered in. It was unclear if those attacks were successful, but Osama bin Laden did survive that attack, but I've got to believe that at this juncture, speculation would be leaning towards Osama bin Laden as potentially behind this, as the kind of guy who could fund this kind of operation. Back to the details on speculation on some of how this operation may have happened. Again, Rear Admiral Eric McVaden, who worked at the Pentagon for many years, says that he thinks that this is that this was a truly excuse me, I'm trying to read my own. He said this kind of attack is truly another level in American experience, and he thinks that this was very sophisticated. He said that, quote, a great deal of imagination and thought went into this, and he does not rule out a potential computer attack, infrastructure attack following this physical attack on American facilities as the next thing that might come behind this, as something to, quote, as he said, demoralize the nation. He pointed out that it takes enormous skill to steer a 747 into anything, let alone just land it. And he speculates that in these hijackings that the commercial jet pilots for these commercial airliners were replaced with trained terrorist pilots who were capable and trained in steering these large aircraft into these specific targets. As for the president, he has been in drills with the safety of the president. He himself played the president in a drill one time, and a mock drill of an attack on the White House. He said there are two options here for the president. Number one, stay airborne. 747 Air Force One is fully equipped to be able to take care of this situation in the air. Go ahead if you need to break in.
No, Peter, I just wanted to talk a little bit also about your talk with the gentleman who said he was a pilot. I, too, am a pilot and have flown everything from Cessnas to F-14s to commercial airliners. And when I saw that plane go into, the second plane go into the towers this morning, it's exactly what I thought, that this has to be very, very well thought out. I mean, first of all, to get the planes, as you say, to hit the towers, and second of all, to get them within, within minutes of each other is something that took a lot of planning.
Steve, on the airplane question, too, Admiral McVaden speculates that at this time there are probably multiple deceptions going on with the President and Air Force One coming back to the Washington area. Not only would jets be scrambled, but as you know, there are at least 2 Air Force Ones. He speculates there may be multiple deception efforts going on to try to make sure the President gets back to the Washington area safely. The other option for the President, if he does not stay airborne, is to go to a command and control facility that is west of the city, apparently in a secret location. Now, he also says that while he worked in the Pentagon for many years and he knows the facility there, number one, the National Military Command Center and the National Intelligence Center, military information centers, are probably still up and active. He points out that those facilities are in the lower part of the building in the basement and generally more protected than the upper floors of the Pentagon, and he is quite confident that those are still manned and still staffed. He also speculates that the National Security Agency and the state government, the Department of State Communications Command and Control Center is also still staffed despite the evacuation of those buildings. Those rooms, those specific facilities are usually reinforced. He also is now pointed out to me that this attack on the Washington area points up the weakness of Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, to this kind of attack. He says that obviously not since the end of the Cold War has there been any serious plan here to protect the nation's capital from this kind of attack. For example, there is no known air defense system for the area, for the Washington area, no air defense and command and control. That's significant because, frankly, since the end of the Cold War, the city was protected against possible attack from the Soviet Union. But after the end of the Cold War, a lot of that went away. Now, he says that that tactical aircraft could be coming out of Andrews Air Force Base near here, but those would be reservists. That is not a command and control or military facility necessarily. But if there are any tactical aircraft fighters, they're coming from Langley Air Force Base down just south of Washington towards the Virginia Beach, Hampton Roads area, just north of that area. That's all I have from Admiral McVaden right now. And apparently, I want to correct one thing, that the report of the attack of the State Department by a car bomb appears to have been inaccurate. Just want to clarify that. But of course, we're continuing to follow the situation here, and we're trying to get military and intelligence experts in here now, as this, we're not sure if it's over. We're just not sure if it's over yet.
Peter, in a situation like this, I know the president is on his way back to Washington or to some type of command and control facility. Who else would be coming back in to plan what happens next?
Well, obviously, Vice President Cheney, he was out of the city yesterday giving a speech. I'm not sure where, but he would obviously be heading back somewhere. But clearly, when this kind of situation, the standard operating procedure is to make sure that those two men are very well protected. Again, Admiral McVaden says that as far as military command and control, he thinks that's all in place and that the coordination effort is continuing at this hour. Back to Stacy now in New York for some breaking news. Stacy.
Okay, Peter, I'm sorry if you guys had to hear us getting all those details. CNN is reporting that a United Airlines passenger jet has crashed near Pittsburgh en route from Newark Airport, which is in Newark, New Jersey, in our area en route to San Francisco. This is raising questions about the stability right now of the United States air traffic control systems. Now people are starting to think that some of these plane crashes may have something to do with our air traffic control systems, and this apparent terrorist attack is indeed interfering with those. We'll have more details on that for you in just a moment. Back to you, Peter.
Actually, Stacy?
Yeah, Kristen?
I just want to clarify, that is the plane that crashed near Pittsburgh that we had talked about earlier. That's just United Airlines confirming that it was
their
plane.
Right. Yeah,
okay,
UAL
so
is
it's not
confirming
another one.
And American Airlines just has officially confirmed the disappearance of 2 planes.
Right. So we want to point out that the plane that Stacy was just talking about is a commercial airliner that crashed at Somerset County Airport in western Pennsylvania. That's about 80 miles actually southeast of Pittsburgh, and that aircraft was said to be a 767. Are you still with us in Washington, Peter?
Yes, I'm in here getting some information to update you here. We are getting a second analyst telling us that he also feels that in order to pull this off, that the commercial pilots in these planes were taken out of the pilot seats and were replaced by professionally trained terrorist pilots.
Yes.
Also, this analyst, who's my colleague Keith Murrow, giving me this just now, ruling out a possible biological attack at this point, correct? All right. So, all right. At this point, at least one analyst, security analyst, national security analyst here that we've talked to by phone, is ruling out any potential for a follow-up of this today with any kind of biological attack. However, as we know, at least one internet security firm, iDefense, has put out an alert to all customers for possible cyber attack here. And again, Admiral Eric McVaden, who I spoke to, retired Admiral Eric McVaden, who I spoke to moments ago, says that one possible scenario to unfold here is that this is not over, and the next phase of this, in order to demoralize the the United States, would be potentially some kind of cyber attack. We are monitoring that situation very closely. We've also called the FBI, National Infrastructure Protection Center, have not gotten through to those folks on any warnings as well. Our internet service is still down as well, so we haven't been able to get to the website there.
All right, Peter, you hang in there. We're going to get back to you in a couple of minutes, all right? I have some more to ask you, but right now we're going to go to...
Yeah, Matt Markovich is standing by in Seattle for us. Matt?
Kristen, what we're going to talk about here in Seattle is how it's playing on the West Coast here in Seattle. Obviously, we're all shocked by the news, and what's interesting here is that many people are dusting off their Y2K plans. The city of Seattle has dusted off its Y2K plan. The SeaTac Airport is officially under its Y2K plan. They're preparing to park these planes. They have planes that are basically, as you know, being diverted. There's nothing going on at SeaTac. The airport has not been closed, but some interesting things are going on here. Boeing. Obviously, these planes are believed to be some Boeing planes involved. They have what they call go teams. They take off and go immediately to crash investigations. Well, I'm being told by one source that they've had 2 go teams, but there's so many planes involved, they're not sure exactly where they're going to go. So they're planning their strategies right now. Also, in the Northwest here is the home of Bangor Submarine Base. This is one of the bases that is on the highest level of security alert because it holds one of the largest nuclear arsenals in the country. Is right up here about 60 miles northwest of Seattle. They are on the highest level of security, as is McCord Air Force Bases, which is nearby. The city of Seattle, the mayor, Paul Schell, has publicly stated now that they have not received any terrorist threat or any threat of that kind against the city of Seattle. But keep in mind that Seattle was the target of a much publicized attack, and they do have a person that was in custody for a possible New Year's Eve 2000 attack on the Space Needle. In light of that, The Space Needle is now closed and evacuated. The Columbia Center, which is the tallest building in Seattle, reportedly the tallest building on the West Coast, even outside of LA and San Francisco, has been evacuated and closed. And now we're being told that the buildings surrounding the Columbia Center are being evacuated. The courthouses here have been on the highest state of alert. And a couple things. Microsoft, according to them, Microsoft today was supposed to actually release a motion to the Supreme Court, we had learned, amending their complaint, actually a response to the DOJ's filing 2 weeks ago, which basically asked the Supreme Court to close down the Microsoft hearing. They should not get a hearing in front of the Supreme Court. Microsoft has put that on hold in light of what's going on in Washington, D.C. and New York City. In terms of what's going on at the major campus, it seems to be business as usual. So that's some of the things that are going around here. It's a heightened state of alert. Also, keep in mind that Seattle is real close to Canada. The borders here are, again, on a heightened state of alert. They have this thing called a pass lane. And they're now allowing anybody with these passes that can go freely between the United States and Canada. Those have been shut down, and they're checking every single car at the border crossings here, which is about 100 miles north of Seattle. So that's just some of the things that are going on here. Once again, Seattle has not been targeted with a threat, but they're taking all the precautions. And what's really interesting to us is that they're dusting off all their Y2K plans, and now they're putting those into effect. Back to you guys.
All right. Thank you very much, Matt. With regard to the border with Canada, Canada's Transport Ministry has shut down all the airports in the country in the wake of the hijacked planes and the terrorism here. Canadian Airlines, and including Air Canada, is now canceling all of its flights as well. So the airports now, air traffic shut down over the United States and over Canada. We're going to go to Peter Barnes now in Washington for the latest from there. Peter, what have you got?
Gary Nuremberg has just phoned in to report that reporters at the scene of the Pentagon are being chased out of the building. I'm sorry. Sorry, guys. You there?
We can hear you, Peter.
Okay. Sorry about that. We just got this from Gary Nuremberg reporting that other colleagues in the news media are being chased from the Pentagon complex, from that area, being told that there's another plane possibly on the way. Another hijacked plane, we speculate. We have no more details than that, but obviously a lot of panic over at the Pentagon right now. The building's still on fire, still a large section of it collapsed. There are about 24,000 employees who work at the Pentagon, and apparently we have some pictures of it now, and I'm told by Gary on the phone, I'm looking at the monitor as you all are looking at and seeing what this live shot. There are supposedly helicopters in the air over the Pentagon. And we do have one report of a jet fighter that was in the area of the Pentagon, and as I mentioned earlier, one of our retired military sources saying that he speculates now that reservist jet fighters and active jet fighters from Andrews and Langley Air Force Base are patrolling the skies over Washington to be on the lookout for any other aircraft that may be headed here. Also on CNN just now, a retired General Wesley Clark, who commanded the operation NATO operation in Bosnia and former Yugoslavia, saying that he does not think this attack is over right now, and that more could be coming here. And of course, we are, watching for any possible cyber attack as a second wave here, or a third wave in these developing events.
Peter, you were mentioning earlier that you had been talking to a couple of analysts about the positioning of these attacks and the fact that the airspace over Washington is fairly unprotected. I think we can all understand why terrorists would choose the World Trade Center. It's the most noticeable thing on the New York skyline, and it's been hit before by terrorists. It also occurred to me that the attack on the Pentagon might have been more symbolic than anything else. In other words, we can hit you at the very heart of your country and its military structure.
No question that clearly these targets are designed to, as in the words of this one retired military admiral I talked to, designed to demoralize the American people. You know, this again, this has got to be just you know, the worst attack on American soil since perhaps Pearl Harbor, and clearly there was very little, if any, warning. We did hear one report of a warning at the White House this morning that the White House complex might be under attack, but you know, obviously this was a total surprise, and obviously, again, some of the analysts we're talking to, very well planned. I'm looking here because we do want to keep our eye on the infrastructure issue here, and I'm looking at a, there was a briefing at the InfoWar convention the other day. I hate to use the term InfoWar convention, but military and information IT security specialists gathered here in Washington last week and received a briefing from from General David Bryan, who is in charge of the Pentagon's infrastructure protection. And I'm reading now over his presentation, his PowerPoint presentation, because he did say, and I don't recall exactly the numbers, but he did paint a very bleak picture of efforts by cyber attacks on the Pentagon and military defense systems. And of course, we're waiting to see if that unfolds as part of this as well. I see here that the Department of Defense unclassified network, the RIPR net, recorded, well, this is an incredible figure, 22,000 detected events in 1999, almost 24,000 detected events, and that's in quotes, in 2000, and in 2001 so far 28,000. So the Pentagon reporting at this convention earlier this week that the number of attacks on civilian and Pentagon and classified infrastructure networks has been growing substantially here. You know, as you would expect, as the United States has come under more and more criticism and attack from rogue and terrorist nations, criticism and attack now from rogue and terrorist operations around the world. I'm just looking over this to see if there's anything else here. I can, but this general did talk about there's an enormous amount of coordination that goes on within the federal government through the National Communications System, the NCS. The Space Command gets involved, the National Infrastructure Protection Center, all of the military forces, the intelligence community, all of them involved in a serious logistical coordination effort on the critical infrastructure.
Peter, it's interesting that you point out that this may well be the worst attack on U.S. soil since Pearl Harbor. Unfortunately, the death toll in New York alone stands to be much higher than that of Pearl Harbor.
Yeah, I was telling Stacy earlier, I used to work down in that area in the 80s when I was in the newspaper business. I worked at the World Financial Center, which was built right across the street from the World Trade Center. Merrill Lynch is headquartered there. Dow Jones, the Wall Street Journal is where I worked, and Dow Jones was there. There's the whole Battery Park apartment complex and condominium complex down there. You know, thousands and tens of thousands of people work in that particular, just in a 10-square block area, live and work there. And it's just you know, what can you say? It's just devastating. I never thought I'd see anything like this.
A quick update, we're getting some information on some of the casualties here. American Airlines has confirmed one of the planes was a 767 from Boston going to Los Angeles. 81 people were on board that. We believe that's one of the ones that hit the World Trade Center. Another one confirmed, American Airlines from Washington Dulles, with 58 passengers on board. That also en route to Los Angeles.
It is a day we will never forget. We are going to catch our breath and take a break. You do the same. We'll come back.
I realized it was time to go back to school. I wanted a better future.
Going to ITT made him realize that life was not a game.
It feels like the whole family graduated with him. My instructors always went that extra mile for me.
He likes what he's doing, and it shows.
We're very proud of him. Very proud.
Now I have a job that I like, and I have more time for my family. We're very happy.
ITT Technical Institute. Education for the future. To find out more, call 1-800-942-0099 or visit us on the web.
Attention listeners, are you tired of watching the stock market crash? Has the peace of mind that comes with financial security vanished? Is depending on others for your money driving you mad? Well, listen to this. Worldwide Phone Card Corporation has a business opportunity you must explore. This is the ultimate in wholesale distribution. A straightforward, simple plan distributing prepaid phone cards. You can work part or full-time, and there's no selling on your part. Enjoy more time for the better things in life. Call now. Availability is limited. Get a free video and a free brochure. 1-800-293-7949. Call toll-free 1-800-293-7949. Operators are standing by. There is no obligation and the call is free. Call 1-800-293-7949. Call 1-800-293-7949 now.
All right, welcome back to Tech Live. We are covering the events going on around the country today. We're going to go straight to Peter Barnes, who's live in Washington with some updated information for us. Peter?
Yes, Gary Nurnberg is reporting to us from the National Mall that a large military attack plane called the CH-53 just flew over the Jefferson Memorial, is now headed towards the Pentagon. So clearly, the Pentagon Command and Control, military command and control, is moving quickly to try and defend the Pentagon from further attack. And as we've reported, again unconfirmed, there are helicopters flying around the Pentagon. There was a report earlier this morning of a fighter jet there that may or may not have diverted another jet aircraft, another one of these perhaps hijacked jet aircraft, and there's a third report of another jet aircraft possibly headed towards the Pentagon. So obviously military planners now are stepped up their work. And we're going to go now. I have more on the Pentagon itself when we come back, but let's go to Stacey Tisdale in New York right now with some more breaking news. Stacey.
Peter, the DFLP Palestinian group, according to Reuters, has claimed responsibility for this terrorist attack. That is all that we know right now. We have nothing past the headline. According to Reuters, the DFLP Palestinian group has claimed responsibility for this attack. Just to update you on some news that we've also got over the past few minutes, U.S. futures exchanges have been closed, and we were speculating how long those markets were going to be closed. The government's saying that the backup futures systems will not be operational until at least Monday. So we'll get the implications for what that means for U.S. futures trading. But right now the government's saying that the backup systems at U.S. futures exchanges will be down until at least Monday. Obviously, the most major development over the past few seconds is that the DFLP Palestinian group, according to Reuters, has claimed responsibility for this attack. I was just outside on the streets of Manhattan. It's a very, very disturbing sight. We are in the Chelsea area of New York, which is in lower Manhattan, not quite as far down as the World Trade Center. And New York Mayor Rudolph Giuliani called for New Yorkers to head north. Emergency workers are having a very difficult time getting to people. They're having a difficult time helping people. They've called for people to head north. And as I was just on the streets, you're seeing a mass migration of people walking north. The subway systems here are closed. What really struck me was the silence. It is quiet. It is eerie. There is nothing but sheer terror on the looks of people's faces. It was very disturbing. People are quiet, people are very scared, and they're moving north as quickly as possible. We'd been told earlier that Central Park, which is on the northern Manhattan, which separates the east side from the west side of Manhattan and also up into Harlem, is kind of being used as a congregation area for New Yorkers. But we have railroad services, LIRR, that's a Long Island Railroad service, airports in this area, subway systems down, and people are indeed heading northward. We're going to try to, of course, all of us, our team coverage, we're going to try to get you more information on this latest development that the DFLP Palestinian group, according to Reuters, has claimed responsibility for this coordinated attack. Doesn't even begin to describe it, Stephen, Kristen.
All right, Stacey, I am on the internet now, and I looked up the DFPL. I had never heard of the DFPL Palestinian group, and I'll read you what I've got here. Okay. DFPL, yeah. Okay. It says it believes in the Marxist revolution and the class struggle within the Palestine movement. However, DFPL separated from the PFPL in 1969. DFPL thinks it's more realistic when compared to the other extreme groups. Additionally, DFPL is the first organization adopting the view that a Palestine state can be established on any territory saved from Israel, and that removing Israel should not be the ultimate goal of the Palestinians. And then it goes on. At any rate, this is a group that I haven't heard of before. The Democratic. I had neither.
That's great information.
The Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine, as Stacey Tisdale was just telling us, the DFPL, a Palestinian group, is now claiming responsibility for this series of terrorist attacks in the United States.
Here's some information from the United States Department of State. Something published in 1999 says the strength of the DFLP estimated at 500. I imagine that it would have to be a lot more to have an attack of quite this magnitude, so we'll continue to look into that.
Also, there were earlier reports that the Afghan government, this also, Stacey told us earlier, the Afghan government was calling a news conference, presumably now to claim it had nothing to do with this, because Afghan has been harboring Osama bin Laden, who we're all familiar with as a well-known terrorist. But this apparently has to do with the Democratic Front of the Liberation of Palestine, at least according to that group.
Okay, we are going to go back to Washington, D.C. now, and Peter Barnes. Peter?
Yeah, more on that CH-53. It is called a Sea Dragon. It is a Navy helicopter. I want to clarify this. This now seen by Gary Nuremberg heading over the National Mall in the direction of the Pentagon. I don't want to sound trite talking about technology, but clearly in a time like this, but clearly now the military, the Pentagon planners are pulling out some of the most sophisticated technologies they've got to try to avert any further attacks on American, on U.S. federal buildings here, including the Pentagon in the Washington area. This Sea Dragon is a very sophisticated helicopter attack craft with radar, I assume also with equipped with missiles that could shoot down any approaching aircraft. On the Pentagon itself, I want to just update some of the information there on the facility. As you know, we know of at least one report of a plane hitting the Pentagon. The building is still on fire. I don't know if we've got that shot up still, but there are 26,000 military and civilian employees who work there and about 3,000 non-defense support personnel. The Pentagon sits on 34 acres of land, including the center court of 5 acres. It is big enough to, the site, the footprint is big enough to accommodate 5 U.S. Capitol buildings. It has 6.5 million square feet of space, has 17.5 miles of corridor, and I also was faxed some information on, believe it or not, emergency evacuation procedures. So I know that in the past the employees there have been put through numerous drills. The Pentagon, this material from the Pentagon itself, and you know, Steve, you were talking earlier about the attack and the magnitude of it. And the Pentagon information, the military's own public relations material talks about the Pentagon as a building, an institution, and a symbol. And clearly, the attack today designed to show the United States that if you think you can protect your particularly important buildings like the White House and the Capitol, and above all, the symbol of your military power and might, you need to think again. If we're going to speculate here, obviously going forward, there's going to be an enormous reaction here in Washington and around the nation to doing something about this in the future. I was talking to one of my colleagues here. This feels a lot like the assassination of John F. Kennedy. You know, and after that period, so much changed for our country. I think that this is the terrorist equivalent of that. We are going to see a mobilization effort here in Washington. All this talk about the budget deficit and the Social Security Trust Fund and all that stuff, forget about it. This Capitol is going to be focused on this issue for the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. You're going to see an enormous increase in federal spending on military weaponry, an enormous investment in protecting our national buildings after this event today. Obviously, we'll be following those developments. We're waiting for some kind of briefings somewhere on this from the White House or the Pentagon or for the FBI, and of course we'll bring them to you live when we get them.
Peter, just a little more information on that CH-53, because this is a helicopter that I've actually flown on. It's more of a huge lift helicopter, so perhaps that was there for evacuations. I don't think that they have gun power on that, so
okay.
That helicopter, I don't believe would have been going for that reason, but continue to keep us.
Of course, it also could be maybe perhaps transporting key officials to the Pentagon perhaps as well.
Exactly, that's the type of helicopter it would be.
Thank you for that clarification. I just noticed the radar. It did have a radar in the picture that I saw. It is a Navy craft. It did have a radar antenna off the front of it. So, but thank you for clarifying that.
Peter, I also want to talk to you. You were talking about the billions of dollars that's being spent. We've heard a lot about the missile initiative systems and those kinds of things. Do you think this is really going to point out that we have to really rethink everything at this point?
Absolutely, we do have to rethink everything. You know, the critics of the president's missile defense program pointed out that it would do nothing, that the president was trying to spend money in the wrong direction.
Right.
You know, the critics on Capitol Hill are going to have an enormous field day with this. They're saying that, Mr. President, the real threats here are not from rogue nations firing nuclear weapons.
Right.
They're from terrorists walking into the country, hijacking planes, setting off car bombs and truck bombs, and carrying briefcases in with anthrax viruses. You know, that's the threat. So I think you're right. You're onto something, Steve. You're going to see an enormous shift in planning and thinking here on the part of the Bush administration and the U.S. military.
Well, Peter, then let's take it one step further. What do some of those initiatives involve now? Does it involve being more proactive? Does it involve knowing about these things from the start, infiltrating these groups early on, being more offensive than defensive?
Yeah. Well, Admiral McVaden, retired Rear Admiral Eric McVaden, when I spoke to him earlier, pointed out, he said he could not get past the irony of the fact that the United States military could go into a place like Yugoslavia or Bosnia and provide the most sophisticated air defense for a military operation in the world, yet did not have that similar military defense, air defense system in the nation's capital. I think that's probably what you're going to see as number one on the list. You're going to see an enormous amount of money spent on remilitarizing Andrews Air Force Base, for example, which is the closest base here, Langley just down the road near Virginia Beach. You're definitely a major shift is coming here.
Yeah, and as you so aptly pointed out, these are not bombs or missiles. These are American aircraft that are hijacked and used against Americans on American soil. Just amazing.
We're all sitting, just on a personal, we're sitting here in this building hearing reports of other aircraft potentially on the way, and, what happens if a F-15 or F-16 or something intercepts that aircraft as it's flying over Washington?
Right.
And that comes down right here in our in the business district. We don't know.
Well, that's a question I don't even think we want to ponder at this point. What do you do with an aircraft that is headed for disaster?
Right.
Just a quick update, because I know a lot of people trying to get in touch with loved ones and family members that they have in New York, in Washington, and around the country. The phone companies saying that they don't have any damage, any problems, but there's just such a huge call volume right now that it is difficult to get through. A lot of the cell networks having problems, but so far no damage to the nation's phone company.
Steve and Kirsten, one other thought here too on protecting the nation's airports. That the federal government is spending an enormous amount of time and effort trying to make sure that the nation's airports are protected from bombs and things like that. We have one report of possibly a bomb on one of those aircraft that went into the World Trade Center. But there's an enormous amount of technology out there that is designed to sniff out plastic explosives and things like this. All of this is slowly being rolled out in airports around the nation. But you've got to wonder if these were just simple hijackings by professional terrorists, they could have hijacked those planes with the knife off of their lunch tray.
That's right.
And could have threatened a stewardess and gotten up there. No bomb, no gun, nothing that could have been detected by any of this sophisticated technology, and simply forced these pilots out of their seats with the knives, if it were a group of them, and taken over the planes and held the crew captive. It's pretty scary stuff.
Very scary stuff. All right, we're going to check back with you, Peter. Thank you very much. We are joined now in the studio by Greg Lefebvre, who's going to bring us up to date on all that has happened.
Okay.
Greg.
Steve, I think we need to just do a real quick recap of what brings us to this moment today. A calamity started. 2 aircraft struck the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center in New York this morning. A large plane struck the North Tower just before 9 Eastern Time. Then about 18 minutes later, another struck the South Tower. As the city of New York stood in shock, flames and bodies were seen coming from the buildings. Now both of those towers have collapsed. At about 10 o'clock Eastern Time this morning. Within an hour, another explosion occurred at the Pentagon outside Washington, D.C., causing considerable damage there. A few minutes before the last hour, a large plane crashed into a building complex in suburban Pennsylvania. That occurred just minutes after military officials confirmed that they had diverted a large aircraft away from the area around the Pentagon. The FAA has ordered all aircraft out of the sky in the United States, all the way down to small general aviation aircraft. We are seeing other commercial aircraft en route to the U.S. They're now being turned around or diverted to Canada. And the Transport Ministry in Canada has ordered all of its aircraft grounded, and they are allowing those craft diverted to Canada to land there, and then they will close down the Canadian airspace as well. British Airways is reportedly canceling all flights to the United States. The first aircraft in New York hit the World Trade Center at about 8:45 this morning, New York time. It struck near the top of the building in a fireball. Then, 18 minutes after, another plane, a twin-engine aircraft, was seen turning, descending, then striking the South Tower. President Bush spoke to the nation from a school in Florida this morning. He called this a national tragedy. He referred to it as a terrorist attack, saying that terrorism against our nation will not stand. He asked for prayers for the victims. Then he offered a moment of silence. He promised that the perpetrators would be brought to justice. Federal officials have closed all federal buildings in New York and in Washington. Other monument buildings in the United States are on alert or they are closed. The Sears Tower in Chicago is evacuated. In San Francisco, the city's emergency team is doing what other emergency teams are doing around the country. They are on full alert. It must be said that this attack accomplished what the previous attack on the World Trade Center in February 1993 did not do, and that was that it brought down the buildings. So at the moment, 3 airplane crashes and 1 additional explosion. The plane crashes at the World Trade Center and in rural Pennsylvania outside Pittsburgh are considered to be terrorist attacks on the U.S. It is not confirmed that the Pennsylvania crash is related, but we do know that the military did divert a plane away from the Pentagon sometime after the initial Pentagon explosion and before that crash in Pennsylvania. A couple of additional notes. The government of Israel has ordered all of its missions around the world closed and evacuated. This is, by the way, the first all-cross-country ground stop that the FAA has ordered in the United States. In New York, the Port Authority has closed the bridges and the tunnels in and out of the city there. United Airlines has confirmed that it was a United Airlines 767 that crashed in Pennsylvania. American Airlines has confirmed that the 2 planes believed to have struck the World Trade Center tower were American Airlines jets. American said in a statement that the flights were Flight 11, a Boeing 767 en route from Boston to Los Angeles with 81 passengers, 9 flight attendants and 2 pilots, and Flight 77, a Boeing 757 operating from Washington Dulles to Los Angeles. It was reported with 58 passengers, 4 flight attendants, and 2 pilots on board. Also, we should note that United Airlines has reported to us, reported to the wire services that they have canceled all air operations in the United States. The stock markets here in the United States actually never got a chance to open this morning, and they remain closed. And as we now know, airports around the country are essentially shut down. There is, by order of the FAA, no air traffic in the sky now. Steve?
All right. Thank you very much, Greg.
All right. We are continuing to get new information. We're going to go back to Washington, D.C. and our Bureau Chief, Peter Barnes. Peter?
Yes, we're joined now by Michelle Flournoy. She's with the Center for Strategic and International Studies, which is a foreign policy and military think tank just across the street from our bureau here. And she is also a former Pentagon official, worked there for 6 years. We're going to talk to her first, actually, about the Pentagon itself and the building. She's familiar with this area that is still on fire and has collapsed. And Michelle, thank you for joining us. But tell us what you can about this particular section of the building. Who is there? What's there? And whatever else you can tell us.
The side of the Pentagon that was hit is right next to the heliport and also, unfortunately, the firefighting equipment that's resident at the Pentagon. And so we assume that much of that was taken out when the plane crashed. It's a recently renovated part of the building that houses generally aspects of the military services. My understanding is there are a number of senior Air Force general officers and their staffs and possibly some Navy or Army personnel in that wing.
Yes, and you also told me just by coming across the street, you looked up overhead and you did see F-15s?
I couldn't tell what they were. They were pretty high up, but there are Air Force fighter jets flying missions over the city to make sure that no further aircraft come into Washington, D.C.
You worked in the Secretary of Defense office in the planning area. Tell us what is going on now and what is happening, what kicked in.
Right now, what's happened is an evacuation plan for senior leadership has kicked in, and cabinet-level officials are probably meeting with the president at an undisclosed location, trying to come up, being briefed on what we know about the threat, what's happened on the ground, and also the emergency response plans. They're probably also discussing a number of options, but I think it's too early to talk about retaliatory options. It'll be a while before we know who did this, why, and how we can actually respond appropriately.
But as you know, of course, it's easy to speculate right now and point the finger at Osama bin Laden or one of his groups. We've heard a Palestinian, Marxist Palestinian group has also taken credit. Any reaction to that?
We just don't know who did it yet, but I can say that this type of event is unprecedented in terms of its level of complexity, degree of coordination. It suggests a larger, more capable organization that was involved, that had people, intelligence that was able to track goings-on in all of these different places, people who could fly aircraft, people who could deal with explosives, people who could coordinate this kind of complex operation, and that, I think, limits the number of suspects of who might have done this.
So the short list would include, obviously we'd have to look at bin Laden because he has the money. Right. Any other people on the short list or groups?
I'm really not the right expert to say.
You just told me before we came to the shot, everything has changed. Everything is going to change from this point forward. This is a seminal moment in American history. What is going to change from this point forward?
I think that it's a wake-up call that American society is no longer the invulnerable society that we've always thought ourselves to be. Certainly Oklahoma City was the beginning of that wake-up call, but because it was an isolated event and eventually traced to domestic sources, I think people discounted it somewhat. The fact that this is such a highly coordinated event, I think it's going to provoke a whole debate about security measures versus our civil liberties. We're going to have to ask questions about, should we tighten airport security at the expense of some of our liberties? Should we change our air traffic control to ensure that aircraft can't fly so close to the Pentagon? Should we heighten the profile of security forces in and around symbols of our national power, like the World Trade Center, like the Pentagon, and so forth? All of those would be real changes for Americans to accept.
But is it beyond a shadow of a doubt that that's going to happen? I mean, the reaction will, from the American people, will require policymakers here to do all that and more?
I think so. I mean, I think at a time when we spend more than $300 billion on defense each year, people are going to say, wait a minute, why did this happen? Why couldn't you defend me against this threat to the homeland? I think homeland defense is going to now top the agenda of the national security debate.
Are you concerned at all that this is not over?
It might not be over. As I was coming over here, I heard reports, unconfirmed, that Air Force fighters had actually forced down 2 additional planes, one headed for Camp David, one headed for the another headed for the Pentagon. I don't know if that's true, but this story is still unfolding.
Obviously, what we've seen so far is a very low technology attack. Simple things like hijacking planes and crashing them into buildings. What about the high technology side of this? Is the nation's critical infrastructure at risk? What about cyber terrorism and cyber attack?
There are certainly threats in that domain as well, and we deal with them every day, although it's not always printed in the press. Those kinds of attacks occur on a daily basis. We've been fortunate not to have any real catastrophic examples of that, but that cannot be ruled out in the future either.
Yeah, but with this kind of sophistication of this attack, one or two analysts that we've spoken to don't rule out that might be a second wave that comes with this attack.
It could be. The other thing that people worry about is the potential for what we call catastrophic terrorism, which is the use of weapons of mass destruction, some sort of chemical or biological attack that would cause mass casualties.
Is this going to end the debate about a missile defense system? As you know, the president's critics have said, listen, the biggest threat to our country is what we're seeing today. People coming in, terrorists coming in with biological weapons in briefcases, hijacking airplanes and crashing them into buildings. What do you think will happen with that discussion?
I think it will heighten the debate and broaden the debate to deal with the issue of, can we afford to put all our eggs in one basket, the basket of missile defense, or do we need to try to finance a much more comprehensive approach that deals with the full range of potential threats to us?
Back to your practical experience at the Pentagon. You were there for 6 years in the Secretary's office. Tell me more about what is happening with command, control, communications, logistics. Who's talking to who? How secure is that network?
I think that network is very secure. You remember, it was built in the era where we thought nuclear war was a possibility. So that network is very secure. The plans for evacuation and for communication and for reconstitution of the leadership and the government or in an alternative location are very clear, well practiced on a regular basis and so forth. And so I think those communication lines are open, those people are working. I think the main challenge is that the leadership gets somewhat cut off from their staff. There are only a few key essential personnel that go with the leadership, and then everybody else is sent home or evacuated. And so you know, there's an awkwardness to trying to pull the levers of power and make things happen because a lot of your staff is dispersed.
Without violating any national security secrets, tell us about this undisclosed facility. What is at the disposal now of our leader? I assume our leadership here is the President, the Cabinet, key military figures, Joint Chiefs, members of Congress perhaps as well?
Yes, members of Congress.
All of them or just key members of Congress?
I don't know what level of plan they're executing.
In this facility, tell me what is at their disposal. They are patched into everything around the world, everything in the national infrastructure intelligence operation community?
They have secure communications with the intelligence community, with the military, with the interagency. They have, you know, supplies to keep them going in terms of food, water, office supplies, etc., computers. They have force protection, so they have a security force that is protecting them, and so forth. So they basically have everything they need to operate sort of out of their regular departments.
Obviously like a bomb shelter or something. How long can they stay there? Weeks, months?
Again, this was built in an area of nuclear war, so this is for a very long term, longer than they will probably use it in this instance. I think in this case will be, you know, a day or two before things are secured and they come back.
And this is, just to clarify, this is not the Greenbrier facility out in the West Virginia mountains.
I really don't want to comment on location at all.
Okay. As far as tell me just a little bit more about the command and control technology and the infrastructure. These lines are secure. What are we looking at? Are they multiple networks? Are they individual, one giant individual network coordinated by the Pentagon, or what?
Part of this is the idea of redundancy, that you have multiple networks so that if one network is attacked or goes down, you still have alternate communication. So there are multiple redundant networks of various sorts. And again, I don't want to go into details for obvious reasons.
Yeah, obviously, with the situation as it is. Any questions from our team in San Francisco here? Steve? Kirsten?
All right. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter. We'll get back to you.
Thank you.
Some new information. The Mexican border has been closed. The Canadian border is being checked very closely. All flights above this country are grounded, and all flights in Canada have been grounded as well.
The scope of this is absolutely amazing. That's why we want to turn now back to Greg Lefebvre, who we know has covered some of the worst tragedies. You were in Oklahoma City. Can you start to put some perspective on this for us?
I think the first thing a reporter does is you look at the numbers, and it's awful. The United Airlines plane that went down outside Pittsburgh had a capacity of 170 people. That was Flight 93, headed based in Newark, headed to San Francisco. The two American Airlines planes that hit the towers had 92 and 64 people on them each. The officials at the World Trade Center say that at that time of the morning, each of those towers would have perhaps 10,000 people in them. How many of those people were able to escape or flee before those two towers went down? And then you start thinking about the buildings next to them as you see these dominoes go across the New York skyline and the folks that were involved there. It boggles the mind. You do not comprehend something like that, and maybe human nature forgives us for not the inability to comprehend a loss like that. Then you start looking at the economic toll. The nation's airlines have come to a halt in this country. The nation's airlines in Canada have come to a halt. This country's economy reverberates across the world, and a very simple act here can affect economies literally the world over. In this particular case, we have the gross domestic product of the United States for one day, if not coming to a halt, at least radically slowing down. And then you take the economic reverberations of a flight that doesn't make it to New York. Who was on that flight? What business was going to be conducted there? And then you go on to the families of the victims in New York. What happens to those people? The incomes that will be lost, the futures that will not occur for so many of those people. And it takes a while to sink in. I have to tell you, I was in Oklahoma City shortly after the bombing there, and I witnessed something in the people of Oklahoma that was tragic on one hand and heartening in the other. The people of Oklahoma rallied to each other when that event occurred. I have never seen a community of people come together as I have in Oklahoma following excuse me, the tragedy at the Murrah Federal Building there. We may see that here. Of course, we have the anger and we have the resentment that is occurring now in the United States. I was speaking this morning to someone I regard as one of the top economic and international experts. Excuse me, I have a frog in my throat. And he recalled Pearl Harbor. He said, we, by this event, have awakened a sleeping giant, which is what, of course, the Japanese said at the occurrence in Pearl Harbor. And that may be what occurs here. I think Peter's remarks are on target, that you will see some very dramatic changes in the way this country deals with its own and deals with the rest of the world.
It's interesting that we keep coming back to Pearl Harbor because it feels like war to me a little bit today. I know I covered the war in Kosovo. You were in the Gulf War. And this is, a systematic attack on the U.S.
Interesting. The big headline on this morning's San Francisco Chronicle is a never-ending war. They're talking about a different thing. They're talking about the fallout from the Vietnam War and Agent Orange. But interesting how that headline appeared on this morning's paper as people stepped out of their homes this morning following this tragedy.
You know, we have been doing this a long, long time. We have covered wars and air disasters, hurricanes, mass destruction and death. And speaking personally, after doing this for 30 years, you kind of, after a while, think you've seen it all. And then something like this happens. There is nothing in 30 years of experience that prepares me for this, Greg. I'm interested to see how you felt about that when you first got up this morning and heard this was going on.
It's hard to believe. We've been in the business about the same amount of time, and I have never witnessed anything like this. I was at TWA 800, which occurred right outside this very same community. I covered the aftermath of the World Trade Center as its economic reverberations elsewhere. And you think, what more could happen? You hear about these things in novels and you see them in movies, but you know that that's fantasy. And when you look at this, as I said before, it's hard to believe that this is occurring, yet in fact it is. And so from this point, we have to say, what do we do now? Right. And then what do we do next? This expert I was speaking with went straight from the economic toll, which will go on perhaps for years here, to the political toll. What will happen with this world's relations among nations? Will Pakistan, will Afghanistan, will Israel, will Iraq, will Iran have radically different relations with each other, perhaps as the United States and its allies put pressure on one country to squeeze out the bad guys in another country, if in fact that can be known. The implications here are, as Kristen said, are world changing.
Mm-hmm. September 11th, 2001 will be the day that everything changed.
I think you're right.
We appreciate your perspective. Thanks for sticking around, Greg. All right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Careful. That's a Zenith digital TV you're looking at. From big to small to flat to thin, you can't escape the power of Zenith Digital.
Morning, Harris paper.
Not today, Bob.
Looking for a wireless camera, huh, Harris?
What? Heard you looking for a new job, Harris. Need your carpets cleaned up? MP3 player?
Looking for a cell. Want to know your future, Harris?
Look here.
Is your internet provider selling your personal information? That's not the way the internet was meant to be. Switch to Earthlink, the #1 provider of the real internet. Call 1-800-827-6485. Join now and you'll get a free color printer and scanner. With Earthlink, your personal information stays personal, and you get fast direct connection to the internet, 8 email addresses, instant messaging, and more local access numbers than any other ISP. We'll even help you tell your friends your new email address, all for just $21.95 a month. So switch to Earthlink today. Get a free color printer and scanner, and keep your personal information personal.
Love life not what it should be, huh, Harris?
Call 1-800-827-6485. Earthlink.
Cheddar, this historic city of cheese is about to become a cyber city. When I push this button, the Cheddar website will open the markets of the world to us.
we've been hacked.
Security problems? IBM can help.
You are back with Tech Live, and we are covering the attack on America today in New York and in Washington, in western Pennsylvania, where an United Airlines jet has gone down as well. All airplanes are grounded in this country, as they are in Canada. Flights are being diverted to Canadian airports at this point. Nothing is taking off from American airports. As you know, there have been terrible tragedies in New York where 2 airliners were crashed into the World Trade Centers. And the World Trade Center is no longer there. In Washington, reports, excuse me, not reports, but attacks on the Pentagon there. Security experts, military officials, politicians all over the country are still trying to figure out exactly what's going on here. Now, the World Trade Center was actually the center for a lot of telecommunications in this country, and Tech Live's Farhan Memon joins us now with a little bit more on that and how all of that has been affected. Are you with us, Farhan?
Good morning. How are you, Steve?
Good morning.
Well, Steve, you know, the World Trade Center is the telecommunications hub for a city that's serving 12 million people. The World Trade Center has a 360-foot television mast, as it's called, which has 10 antennas on it that serve each of the 10 major television stations that serve the New York City market. In addition, it has auxiliary antennas and a master FM antenna that also serves the New York market. This attack has a major effect on all aspects of communications in the New York market. We're talking broadcast, landline, wireless. I've been in contact with the major cellular providers this morning, and it seems to me that they're in disarray. When you call, obviously everyone's busy and they're in meetings, but there doesn't seem to be a planned, organized disaster recovery apparatus set up to answer questions of what's going on and how they're going to recover from this disaster.
All right, thank you very much, Farhan, for joining us. We also want to bring you up to date on a fairly recent development, the group that is claiming responsibility for this. It is called the DFLP, the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine. Now, keep in mind that because a group claims responsibility doesn't necessarily mean that it is to blame. Sometimes when these things happen, a lot of these fringe groups will look for some of the spotlight, whether they were responsible or not. We were also expecting to hear a news conference from the Afghan government. Afghan has been harboring Osama bin Laden, a very famous terrorist that we're all familiar with, and we were presuming that they were going to claim that they had nothing to do with it. But the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine is a Marxist-Leninist organization founded in 1969 when it split from the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. In the 1970s, it conducted numerous small bombings and minor assaults. Some more spectacular operations in Israel and the occupied territories concentrating on Israeli targets, but certainly nothing even approaching this. It is estimated that it only has 500 members. So it is the group that claims responsibility, but we don't know for sure that that is the case.
Yeah, Steve, we've just been given some more information from United Airlines here. They are concerned about United Flight 175. That's a Boeing 767, which was bound from Boston to Los Angeles. Apparently, they've lost contact with that plane, so we'll continue to keep you updated. Obviously, these attacks affecting a lot of U.S. businesses. We want to go over to Carmine Gallo now, who has more on that. Carmine?
Yeah, businesses and employees. Obviously, business around the world has been thrown into an upheaval because of these terrorist attacks. As you can see behind me, all financial markets, all U.S. markets are closed. There is no stock trading today or indefinitely. I just got off the phone with a producer who was at a Lehman Brothers conference here in San Francisco. That has been canceled today, so people can go and deal with the tragedy. One of the top chip analysts in the country has a brother who works in downtown Manhattan, and he had to call him, and he's okay. So you can extrapolate this to businesses and conferences all over the country. Since many of our viewers do work for tech companies, you are employees, I thought it would be most appropriate if I tell you how your employers are handling the situation. We just got off the phone with Charles Schwab. They've got a big branch in the World Trade Center. Apparently their employees seem to be okay. They got out after the first plane crash, but Schwab has told all other employees in San Francisco at corporate headquarters not to come in or to go home as a precaution. Advanced Micro Devices, perfect example of how major companies are dealing with this situation. They're drafting emails to 15,000 employees around the world. Intel's email should be going out at any moment. AMD has stepped up security. They are asking employees to abide by the security precautions. Supervisors are being told if any of the employees at AMD have friends or family in the area to let those employees deal with the circumstances as appropriate. And the spokesman told me at AMD corporate travel has been a mess. Managers and executives have had their meetings canceled, delays because of the fact that all the planes are halted. And they said that corporate travel, being in an uproar, could go on for a long, long time. So that's just how some local companies and tech companies especially are dealing with the tragedy. All right, Steve, Kristen, back to you.
Also want to point out the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission says that stock markets will not open for trading. The same with the European Stock Commodity Exchange. Trading there has come to a halt. People are being given the option of going home. One trader quoted as saying, "The whole market is virtually shut down. There is no trade, none." We're going to go back now to Stacey Tisdale, who is in New York for us. Stacey, what have you got?
Steve, let me give you some latest developments right now. First, I want to tell you the latest, what we have from the Federal Reserve. We have reports from Reuters that Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan is not in the Fed building. The U.S. Federal Reserve has issued a statement saying that the discount window, that's where banks go to borrow money, is indeed open to meet global liquidity needs, and that the Fed is going to stands ready to come to the need of as much money as possibly needed. But the Federal Reserve wanted to come out and make the statement that they are indeed open and operating. Just to get you updated on some of the other developments, Colin Powell has cut a trip that he had planned to South America, which should come as no surprise. Steve mentioned earlier that the U.S.-Mexico border is closed. To let you know a little bit what's happening around here in New York, the New York National Guard has been called out, and New York Governor George Pataki is reporting that emergency workers are indeed having trouble getting to all of the people that are in need. Now, when we saw that first plane hit the World Trade Center, we know it was followed 18 minutes later by another plane. Firemen were already on the scene as the first plane hit. Unfortunately, I have to report 200 New York firemen are missing in the World Trade Center, that according to ABC. Now, we were on the scene shortly after the first blast, and we were able to get a hold of a business correspondent from the BBC. I do want to warn you that this video is graphic. While we were talking to this correspondent is when the second plane hit the building. If we could roll that sound bite.
The thing that strikes me is, one, the terribleness of the incident, whatever the cause, and we don't go into politics, but whatever the cause, the terribleness, the hugeness of what's happened. So huge, in fact, that most of the people around simply can't understand what happened. People were just standing around, talking at each other, nodding their heads.
Right, come on. Get this. We're good here. As you can see, the first tower just went down. People are just running through the streets. It's incredible. I've never seen anything like this.
It was TechTV reporter Rico Williams on the scene as that took place. Now, just to put this a little bit into perspective, when that BBC correspondent first started speaking, as you saw before the blast, we had no idea the global implications of what had happened. We were all responding to a tragedy at the time that a plane had hit the World Trade Center. Obviously, this has turned since that time in the past few hours into what's probably most likely going to be the story of the century. The U.S. government is trying to respond to keep this from becoming a global economic meltdown. They wanted to reaffirm to the world that Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan, again, Steve and Kristen, is not at the Federal Reserve building, and that the Federal Reserve does stand ready to supply the world with money as needed. And we're going to get you some more details. I was just on the streets a few moments ago, Steve and Kristen. The silence is what was so eerie to me. People are being told by New York Mayor Rudolph Giuliani and Governor George Pataki to simply head north, to get away from that southern tip of Manhattan, from that financial part of Manhattan. But we don't have any subway services. People don't have cell phones. We don't have taxi cabs. Public transportation is at a halt. There's limited rail service out of New York trying to get people out of the city. But it is just, it's a war zone. It feels like we're in a bad Mel Gibson movie here.
Well, Stacey, you're obviously at ground zero. just to give you some perspective, that things are happening all over the country. In Washington, as I know you've heard, all federal buildings have been closed down after the attack on the Pentagon. In Seattle, the Space Needle is closed. The Sears Tower in Chicago has been closed. The Bay Bridge in San Francisco has been closed. Disney World in Orlando has been closed. Tell us a little bit more about the aftermath there in New York. Is there any calm coming to the area at all?
Unfortunately, Steve, I think it's really just getting started, because what you're going to see is New York is such an incredibly congested place. You're going to see more of an evacuation because of so many other landmarks we have here. We have Grand Central Station is something that I'm very concerned about, because I know it's a very top as some terrorist hit list. We have, so many of our major transportation hubs being closed down because of security reasons. You can imagine the nightmare that emergency workers here are trying to contend with to try to evacuate what's starting out as lower Manhattan, but it's bound to migrate northward. So, Steve, what you're looking at in the aftermath could be a potential evacuation of some major parts of New York City with our transportation systems being closed. So just try to, grasp what that means. And I'm just seeing coming over the headlines that the PGA Tour has canceled Thursday's start of the World Golf Championship because of the terrorism attacks that are going on around the country.
The whole world is affected. Stacey, tell us more also now about the financial markets, the effect of this, everything being closed down, not only here but overseas.
The markets overseas have been plunging, isn't even the word, in response to what happened. It was kind of interesting. We all know the market turmoil that we've all been agonizing over the past few days, and we looked like we were really going to have a positive open. This news came out and kind of wiped the bottom out of that. Money has been pouring into U.S. Treasury markets. That has the net effect of pushing interest rates sharply lower. They have stabilized a bit, but interest rates were plunging in early trading. The dollar was plunging in early trading, Steve. The NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange's trading has been suspended. I have a statement here from the SEC saying that they're not going to resume trading in U.S. markets until a time that they think it is practicable. And also the U.S. futures exchanges, which are really the backbones of our markets, are closed, and we have a statement on that saying that the backup systems for the futures exchanges won't even be operational until Monday. Interestingly, we're seeing some money come into some stable commodity markets. We're seeing oil prices rise as money comes into those markets. And we're also seeing the price of gold rise dramatically. That because gold's seen as a safe haven investment, Steve. During times of turmoil, investors a little bit nervous to turn to the U.S. Treasury markets, even though we are seeing a great deal of money pouring in. So people are even going to the extreme of turning to gold. So we're seeing those markets, those commodity prices rise sharply as well. And Steve, this all brings up an interesting point. Nobody can see an end to this right now, but when the dust finally does settle, the level of our markets are going to be in such a chaotic state. U.S. companies' insurance claims are going to be such a chaotic state and such a financial burden on the world that the fallout of this, it could really last for years.
Just amazing. All right, we're going to get back to you. Thank you very much, Stacey. That's Stacey Tisdale in New York.
We want to go back now to Washington, D.C., where Peter Barnes is standing by for us. Peter, I know that President Bush this morning spoke earlier, and he vowed to hunt down the perpetrators. He then got on Air Force One, presumably headed back to Washington, D.C. Do we know if he's back in the Capitol now or where he is?
Yeah, the latest report we have is that he's about to land here shortly, within the next 30 minutes or so, and there are several news organizations reporting now that he will return to the White House. He is going to go to the White House to take control of the situation, not to the at least one secret facility we know is west of the city. He has instead decided to go to the White House, and according to these reports, to send a message, to send a signal to whoever is behind this attack that the United States will not be intimidated by terrorism. Also want to let you know we have been continuing to monitor the situation with the critical infrastructure, the nation's critical infrastructure, information infrastructure. We talked to Alan Paller at the Sands Institute today. Alan is one of the members of the Presidential National Advisory Group on protecting national critical infrastructure, and he says, according to their monitoring, at this time there are no signs or spikes in infrastructure traffic or activity to suggest that there is any kind of cyber attack or information warfare attack imminent or underway. We've been, of course, watching that one organization we reported this morning, iDefense, a private security firm that does a lot of work in the government, putting out an alert this morning to IT professionals in the public and private sector to be on heightened alert for any kind of cyber attack, as perhaps a second or third wave of the physical attacks on structures and buildings here around the country. Also, I want to give you some of the color here in Washington. Right now, we cannot get through on phones to our friends and neighbors and loved ones here. I've been trying to reach my wife for the last hour. I can't get to her on the line in my house in Northern Virginia. Cell phones are not operating either. We assume that is because the traffic has overwhelmed the system. There are fire trucks now on the scene at the Pentagon. We can see that in the shot at the Pentagon, the live shot from the roof, one of the Washington rooftops here. Fire trucks are spraying now that section of the Pentagon, which was apparently caught on fire after a plane crashed into that building. And we've had, again, unconfirmed reports of U.S. fighters diverting other commercial aircraft that appeared to be headed to the Pentagon, and so far no other incidents there. We are, we did have an expert in the Bureau a few moments ago, Michelle Flournoy, who's a former Pentagon official, who told us that there is, of course, a very sophisticated plan for protecting our national leaders and getting all of the key decision makers to one place to monitor the situation. Since the president is going now, apparently reportedly back to the White House, we assume he will go into the White House Situation Room, which is a protected, bunkered facility beneath the White House, where he will be able to monitor the situation there. And Michelle also pointing out that as far as critical infrastructure, she noted that a lot of that the system that the government uses, military and civilian government communications, is redundant on many levels, designed so to protect the infrastructure in the case of a nuclear war. She is not concerned. She was not concerned, as a former official in the Secretary of Defense's office who worked in the planning area. Michelle Flournoy, now with the Center for Strategic and International Studies, not concerned about the vulnerability of U.S. command and control and communication systems. Also, on the color front, we do know that the skies of Washington are being patrolled by military fighters at this hour. Some of my colleagues out on the street coming back in reporting the jets flying over here. But once again, we are going to continue to watch for any signs that of cyber attack on infrastructure, public and private, and if we have any updates on that. So far, so good. Does not look like there are any, but of course, there's some concern that given the sophistication and coordination of these physical attacks on buildings, that this kind of group would have the means and the know-how to also go after infrastructure. One retired admiral I talked to this morning saying that he could see that as a final attack, an attack on infrastructure, internet, communication systems, as a final blow by whatever group is responsible for this to try and demoralize the United States.
Peter, you mentioned the military, and I know we're throwing a lot of things at you. There's a lot to cover here, but have you heard about overseas interest being on heightened alert? We know that in the past there have been terrorist attacks on U.S. bases overseas.
Well, no, I have not. But ironically, you know, those facilities are more protected than our facilities here in Washington in many cases because of terrorist attacks. The attack in military officials in Germany, the attack on the U.S. military operation in Lebanon during the Reagan administration. Those facilities probably better protected these days than some of our own government buildings here in Washington.
Peter, I want to go back to, you mentioned that you've been trying to call your wife, and because all the cell lines are busy, you haven't been able to get through. We hope that at least she's able to watch TechTV and know that you are well.
Well, that's going to change. We haven't gotten TechTV yet. We don't have it on our cable system. So, but I talked to her earlier this morning. I was concerned. There was a report, of course, about another hijacked aircraft coming in towards the Pentagon. My wife and our house is just probably about 5 minutes from the Pentagon, and obviously, if U.S. military fighters are on patrol and diverting aircraft, I wanted to alert her of the possibility that to make sure that she took cover along with friends and family in the event that aircraft were shot down. There was a very large residential area of Washington near the Pentagon. I have many friends and neighbors who work at the Pentagon, and so.
Well, I know how unnerving that can be. When I covered Hurricane Andrew in Miami, I didn't know for 2.5 days if I even had a home or what had happened to my neighbors as well, and I know it's a very difficult circumstance to be working under. I want to talk to you a little bit about the, we talked earlier about possible cyber attacks. Now, to me, it doesn't seem that the kind of groups that would do this are the same people we face in the war against our computers. These are terrorists that use, you know,
very low tech weaponry.
Exactly.
Yeah. No question. But you know, I think that the analysis behind that issue is that if this group could coordinate, as I was saying, this former Pentagon official, Michelle Flournoy, who was here, pointed out the fact that you know, for some obviously whoever was behind this had an enormous amount of on-the-ground planning and preparation for this, scoping out and surveying specific government buildings, scoping out, surveying airports, flight schedules. All this was so well coordinated that you've got to believe that whoever was behind this, of course, and this has been a major issue in Washington, is the potential vulnerability of the United States to these kinds of low-tech attacks, and this former Pentagon official, as you know, speculating, would not rule out the fact that whoever was behind this was probably so well organized and so well funded that you could not rule out the possibility of potential cyber attack as part of this. So far, again, no signs of that. We've talked to a couple of our sources in the infrastructure area who are watching it. They're on alert, but no signs of that yet.
But you know, Peter, along those lines, you know that you can, I mean, you can get all this information off the internet. If you want to know when a plane, which plane, the flight number, everything about that plane, when it's taking off, where it's taking off, you can get all of that information on the internet, and you would think that actually it would not be that difficult to plan this kind of thing. You pick a plane that's taking off the same time here as it is there.
Steve, let me interrupt you. Steve, let me interrupt you. We've just received word that President Bush is not going to return to Washington. Just an alert handed to me by one of our producers. The President is not returning to Washington. I don't have any more information. Obviously, as I said, there are facilities outside of Washington in the event of this kind of attack that the President and top national leaders can take shelter in to try and take control of the situation. There's obviously the facility at Greenbrier Resort in West Virginia, a massive bunker facility that was built during the Cold War. Not sure if that's where they're headed, but of course we'll let you know as soon as we get some information. But I will say this, clearly this decision was not made in a vacuum, that perhaps military planners and law enforcement officials know something we do not, feel that the situation here is too dangerous at present and will continue to be too dangerous for the President to return here. So as soon as we find out, if we find out where he's going, we'll let you know. But we assume now then he is off to some kind of protected command and control facility, either at the Greenbrier or some other facility in the Washington area to try to get a handle on what's happening. We are told that in Air Force One, which is fully equipped, as you know, with the latest military equipment, technology, and communication systems, that he has been briefed fully throughout this and has been issuing whatever commands he needs to military, as if they need any commands in this situation. So that we are told that he is monitoring and on top of the situation, but not going to be coming back to Washington. So let's watch that.
I want to get back to my point. I wanted to discuss with you, Peter, about the fact that do you think it's going to change that all this information is right there out on the internet for, I mean, for people to coordinate this kind of thing if they wanted to, that all the flights are available, all the information's available? There's even a program out there called Flight Tracker where you can actually watch a GPS downloaded image of the plane flying across the country. What are your feelings on that?
Well, as this former Pentagon official told us, Steve, you know, I think that the debate here is going to shift between what kind of protections we want for ourselves, personal protection we want in our country, to what kind of liberties we want. Clearly, the internet has been this open system that people have been able to use to get all that kind of information and more. Clearly, bad people can also get access to that information, and they may have in this case. Of course, that we'll find that out as this all unfolds. But the debate here, I saw an interview on another network with someone who said, I don't care what it takes to stop this from happening in the future. I just hope that our government does something about it. And that may involve curtailing some of the technologies that we've used for transmitting information, curtailing our rapid check-in at the airport, more detectors and scanners when we try to check in at the airport. Now we'll have to show up 3 hours before we go on a flight somewhere. Maybe people getting searched all the time. I don't know. One other, Steve, again on this issue of cyber monitoring the infrastructure here, we do have again an update now from our iDefense, Michael Cheek, the managing editor there, saying that as of this hour, no indication of any cyber attacks. All the information websites, he says, news and information websites are being overwhelmed. But he did say that their monitoring shows that this is some of the highest volumes of internet traffic ever seen, as you would expect.
Peter, we just got a little information, and we're getting this from all different places today. NBC is reporting that President Bush is at Barksdale Air Force Base. That's in Louisiana. They say it's the most secure air base that he could go to, and he's expected to speak shortly, so we will try and bring you his comments.
Thank you for that.
Peter, what would you expect the president to tell the nation at that point?
Well, the first thing we're going to hear the president do is obviously lash out in anger at whoever was behind this. Second, he will say that the United States will not be intimidated by this kind of thing. Third, he will talk about actions or whatever coordination is going on within government leaders and the military and the Pentagon. I am sure he will try to reassure the country, based on his latest intelligence information, of what the status of this attack is. And fourthly, I think that you'll see him make a very compelling statement to try and start some kind of healing process, because as we talked earlier about Pearl Harbor, the assassination of JFK, some seminal events in our nation's history that have changed us from that point forward, and this is clearly going to be one of them.
Peter, I know I've been into the White House and took a tour with the Secret Service and was just amazed at the security there. Do you think that an Air Force base is more secure, or why do you think that decision was made? If you can give us some insight there.
I don't know anything about this base, I have to confess, but clearly the top people who have to make those decisions have made that decision, and they feel that that facility is safe and secure. As you know, there are a lot of facilities around the country that we never hear about. Secret facilities that are for security in the event of this kind of emergency. So many people now know about the Greenbrier facility that I saw it on a special on A&E the other night. Clearly, terrorists who, if they wanted to attack that facility, know exactly where it is and could try and bomb it or drop a bomb on it. I'm confident that military planners and law enforcement officials made that decision knowing that this would be the safest place for the president at this time. I'll also tell you, I've tried to call a couple friends of mine, one who's a member of Congress. I can't reach him, so I assume in this situation there are plans to try and get members of Congress and their families to safe locations. I don't. Maybe that has been executed, maybe not. This friend of mine is a key chairman of a key subcommittee, so I have not heard from them. So obviously the situation continues to unfold here, and we're trying to stay on top of it.
Well, Peter, I know that your crystal ball is no bigger than ours, but I guess we should point out that it has been a while since any of these attacks occurred. There have been no new reports for some time. I think as a nation we're keeping our collective fingers crossed. I'd be interested to hear what analysts think about that. Have we seen the worst? I'm even afraid to say that. But
yeah, two of the analysts I talked to today said that they cannot be sure that this is over, Steve. So I'm sure that clearly, if you see what's happening out this front door of our bureau here with jet aircraft and the fighter jets in the air, the military planners do not think it's over. They're not taking any chances.
Yeah, we're looking at video there from outside the Pentagon. I believe that was shot earlier, and it's just disturbing to see the complete destruction. All right, Peter, thank you very much. We're going to get back with you, and we will take a short break, and we'll be back with more.
To you, it's a PC, but to your kids, it's a laboratory, a museum, or a rainforest. The compact